I'm in the page. I'm
Okay,
live
now
now.
it's got me the signal, and we're going, Mark.
Awesome. Let's do this.
There's a zoom, and it's got me. Let me like make it gallery for the moment, so everybody can see our gorgeous mugs. Look at
There we
those
go.
guys. Those
There we are. I'm
guys.
like very blown out. I gotta like lower that light a
You
little.
got blown
Well,
out.
now you're on. I'm on a nice camera, right?
You
So
got It's that's what you call a blowout, not a blowover. It's a
there we go.
blowout.
That's a
Not a
little bit better. And I
tire.
got that nice shadow on the side of my face.
Ooh,
Looks
so
like I look
noir
like
of you.
I'm.
So
I
noir.
know I look like I'm like giving one of those interviews in a documentary where I'm like, please don't use my voice.
Oh
Like.
no, you've got Dark Side of the Ring going on. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, so this is what really happened in WCW back in the day. Like Hulk Hogan was a real no. Anyways, yeah, so we're going live now. Wonder who else is coming up to check out this fun activity we got going on now. Our New
Where's
Year's
the
live
chat?
stream.
Where's
New
the
Year's live
chat?
stream.
Is there a chat somewhere? I'll have to just go to it on here. Yeah, so we are we figured for New Year's that we would do a live stream. We've never done this before, so this is very new to us. So not the highest of production values, but
It's better than most things. It's actually up there with The Room right now. I mean, we have 2 cameras. We're shooting in digital. We're not shooting in film, so we're not getting all the bases. Not covering all the spaces.
If you're like familiar with our podcast, you'll know that we alternate between having a guest on our podcast, and one week and then the next week we'll review an old race, or we'll talk about an aspect of motorsports from the past that we like celebrity team owners, things like that. And we just chat about it because we're like huge NASCAR nerds, and we have nothing better to do. So today we are going to watch an amazing race that James picked. It's a cut down. It's an hour and 15-minute cut down of the 1988 Goodyear 500. But it's not like any other NASCAR race, James. This race is from the Thunderdome in Calder Park, down under in Australia. NASCAR ran an exhibition event with Winston Cup cars in Australia in 1988, 2 weeks after the Daytona 500. So, James, was this on like an off weekend, or was this like in the middle of the week?
No, this was an off weekend. This was actually after the second race of the year. So this was post Richmond, and this is like the first time the NASCAR will have like an exhibition race outside of the US. I mean, there's a lot of quotes. There's probably like some kind of exhibition race, whether it was in Ontario or Mexico, that's technically outside that you could say had happened. But this was like a very different event because it was really trying to solidify like stock car racing that we had known in America at the time over into new markets. And that market was Australia. Australia, as we all know, the Australians are petrol heads. They love anything with cars, whether it's just, doing sick burnouts or properly racing them. They just enjoy all aspects of the automobile. So why not introduce them to this culture of stock car racing? And it's kind of up their alley. I mean, they do race stock cars with the V8 supercars, but those are way more stock than a stock car. But still, I mean, the racing and competition that is presented within, circle track racing, I think really was piquing their interest. I mean, you also look, kind of current day, dirt track racing is very popular with their sprint cars, whether they're winged or unwinged. You see a lot of the top drivers in America go over to like New Zealand or Australia and run over there, and it shows because they've got that bug for that kind of racing too. So at this time, that was stock car racing was really trying to get a global appeal. So that's really the whole, I guess, motive for this event. It's a really cool event though, because I mean, there's not many places where you go and you actually have a circle track outside of North America. So they obviously had to build this circuit. This is like something that was fabricated for this event and for this series that they're trying to like build up with this event.
Yeah, and give you some background on the track. Like, so it took 4 years to build. They started in 1983. It's a 1.1 mile like quad oval speedway. So it's kind of like Atlanta. It has like
it's like a Charlotte, basically a clone of
yeah,
Charlotte,
but
if you think
smaller.
about it.
So it's 24 degrees of banking. and then slightly banked front stretch, back stretch. But it's a really cool racetrack, man. If you have the opportunity, there's actually a video on YouTube of people going to visit it now. It's abandoned, but you can go check it out. And the surface looks raceable, man. Like now, like when you see it in the video, I'm like, that looks like you could race on it. But the grandstands are overgrown and whatnot. So it looks pretty cool though. Like it's a really cool speedway. And if I ever go to Australia, hopefully, someday soon, I would love to go check it out and see this abandoned speedway in the middle of nowhere. So really honestly in the middle of nowhere, like there's nothing else out there. So
yeah, and that's probably why it's kind of still standing. I don't really think there's a whole smorgasbord of value to developing in that area. No offense, but like you never know. It could just be like an area where they just don't see that. So the track just remains there, and it's kind of like a interesting like time period piece that's still like there, continuously just starting to deteriorate. And to Mark's point, the racetrack itself looks pretty decent, but I mean the infrastructure around it, the buildings, the roads to go in and out, they're all very, very deteriorated. And you kind of really see that throughout this abandoned videos, because it's kind of a shame to see like how it just goes away when it's unmaintained by humans. But hey, a part of that is just nature reclaiming its surface level of comfort. So sad thing, but it's really interesting because I mentioned it looks like Charlotte. It really looks like Charlotte. Like you look at it and just the landscape around it. It's got like some hills, a bit of flat land, but it kind of looks like they kind of built Charlotte in Australia. So I guess it's a good staple track for the product. And it's interesting that like they decided to build more of an intermediate track rather than a short track. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure at that time the product of short track racing was really big with NASCAR. I don't know why they wouldn't try to build a short track. Instead they go for the super speedway. But hey, it looks pretty cool. Though there are a couple of areas though, I don't know, Mark, looking at it even from like some of the race footage, I think it's just a bit too narrow in areas. You know what I mean? Like you look at it.
Can't quite go 3 wide. It's a bit dodgy, as they would say, to go 3 wide. So,
very bumpy as well, much like Charlotte too with its bumps.
Yeah, and very fast. It's a really cool racetrack. They did all kinds of different racing at Calder Park. They actually had a Australian series called Oscar, which was kind of like NASCAR, but like in cars in Australia, the steering wheel's on the right. So I was just thinking about that. I'm like, can you imagine like driving on an oval where you're always turning left, but you're on the other side of the car? Be kind of interesting. But yeah, actually,
that's what's funny, because I've seen races at this track where they're not racing clockwise, they're running counterclockwise and turning right instead of left. So I find that very interesting that they've done that at this track, and that Australia continued to like say, hey, in this part of the world, we drive on this side of the road, and we're going to reflect that with our stock car racing too. And, they put their foot down. It's very interesting and unique to see. I've only ever seen it too, like in the UK, but like they don't have like a track as big as that. They're like short track little bull rings, and you see them more with compact cars. You don't see them with like professionally built stock cars like they were running over there throughout the late 80s and early 90s.
This race features full Winston Cup cars. So, and we have some Winston Cup ringers in this race. We've got some guys that have come over from NASCAR to race. We've got Bobby Allison, who just won the Daytona 500 2 weeks earlier. We've also got Neil Bonnet in this race. He won at Richmond the week before. So you've got some like heavy hitters in this race. Dave Marcus. We won't do why don't we just do a strange starters, James? We'll just say it's strange starters and we'll talk about the strange starters.
Yeah, because it's really interesting, because to the point, they're trying to sell the product of stock car racing over there. So of course you want to have some of the more notable American stars from that race kind of in the field. So like to Mark's point, Bobby Allison, he was a really big influence to help bring some cars over there too. So he's good hands with preparation. And then of course, Neil Bonnet. That was interesting that Bonnet came, because I think his whole Winston Cup team was there too. So that was pretty dope. Mark, who else do you have on the list there?
So also Kyle Petty, 27-year-old Kyle Petty is in this race. Michael Waltrip, who's off winning Rookie of the Year the prior year in the Cup Series, 24-year-old Michael Waltrip is in this race. Also Harry Gant, Morgan Shepherd, Rick Wilson, and Dave Marcus driving that number 71 car. Also, a couple other guys, in the race, a couple West Coast guys, and of course, some Australian drivers. So Alan Grice in this race actually had great qualifying. He starts right up front driving the Foster's car because it wouldn't be an Australian race if there wasn't a car sponsored by Foster's, which I Googled and apparently isn't really even a beer they drink there.
No,
It's
you
just
you might have offended whatever Australian
yeah.
audience is here. It's like, no, it's not. The biggest interesting starter in there to me is Chad Little, and it's to your point with Foster's. He's running the Coors Extra Gold beer car, and then that's like, yeah, that's like nice because you see a lot of the sponsors on here. To your point, there's Foster's, AW, um, I'm trying to like look through. Spirit of America is an American company. Pennzoil. You got Coors Light. You got John Deere tractors, Puramex automotive products, the Dawsonville Pool Room. What kind of exposure are those companies really like? Some of them, yeah, I get it. Like there are American companies here with some globalization like ties, especially at this point. But the Dawsonville Pool Room,
Hey,
like
why not,
what?
man? Why not be world famous, right?
I
And
mean,
we
what?
forgot
Yeah,
Chad
internationally
Chad
known.
Little's in this race too. I forgot Chad Little's in this race.
Yeah, I just was like, oh yeah, Chad Little,
He's what,
because
like
I think
12
we
years
always
old?
forget about his Winston Cup era before like the '97 John Deere car. I think everybody thinks, yeah, that's him. It's Chad Little. No, he had a several years where he was running with a lot of different teams, and he had big name sponsors, much like this Coors Extra Gold. Extra Gold. I wonder what that means. Does it mean it has extra barley in it?
Probably. It's like
Uh,
extra amber.
extra amber for you. Anyways, he's driving that extra amber car, and it's that same team, that number 19 team that he ran with so many. I think it might have been 2 years, and I remember they were running with Bullseye Barbecue as their sponsor, and Tyson Chicken.
There's also the man, the myth, the legend of Australian motorsport, Dick Johnson's in this race as
Yes.
well. And he's driving his own car that he owns because he actually came across and did some racing in NASCAR, not just road courses either. He did some oval races. You can check out the Strange Starters video we have for road course ringers, and there's a piece about him in there that really kind of goes into detail about his career in NASCAR with Ray Evernham as his crew chief, actually, for his efforts. So
Yeah, and you think about that, that's Ray in a very like interesting point in his career where he's like, trying to break into Winston Cup more, and he's also working at IROC, I believe. So bright young mind working with him. Yeah, Dick Johnson was, I think, very instrumental, probably, if you want to say like with exposing NASCAR stock car racing in Australia. I don't know if he's like one of the few key figures, but his name always pops up when I'm looking up, just information about it. So it's good to see that he's in this race. He's starting deep in the field though, man. And there's a interesting ARCA guy that's in this race too, Mark.
yeah, Bill Venturini from Chicago.
Yeah,
Bill
exactly.
Venturini. Yeah, driving the number 25, of course. That's still the
It's his
Venturini
number.
number. Right.
Yep. What's interesting is like, you mentioned the Winston Cup cars. Like I'm pretty sure these cars were, either racing in Winston Cup, ARCA, or I think they might have had that Sportsman series at the time over at Charlotte Motor Speedway where you could just run ex Winston Cup cars as an amateur. So like there was probably a good plethora of people that had access to these cars, and you think about this opportunity to get this international exposure and being in what at the point was like a once in a lifetime event. And it is a once in a lifetime because things only happen once, or for the first time once in a lifetime. So this is like a big moment in stock car racing for them to all like have a spot in history. So for Bill to kind of make that jump and do that, that's pretty cool, man. Good for him. He got to add that to his resume.
So it's a pretty dope race. For history wise, this is actually the first time NASCAR ever raced outside of North America. So decided to go to Australia, as James mentioned before, for obvious reasons. Obviously, we all know in the 90s they did some racing in Japan, then went to Mexico City in the 2000s, went to Montreal, and now we've got the race at CTMP, and we're hoping to get more international racing in NASCAR in the future. It's always great to explore new markets. So James, why don't you go ahead and just share your screen and we'll just start watching this race.
Yeah, we'll get this race going here.
So it's a little primitive. We're just gonna like share screen, but this is our first time doing this. We spent like 3 hours today trying to figure out how to do this properly. So, but you know what? It'll work.
I think we got it good. But the biggest thing is with this race is like, to your point, I think is it kind of sets the groundwork for NASCAR's like more international exposure that we see throughout the 90s and 2000s. Yeah.
So we've got our. Do we have audio there, James?
Sorry?
Do we have audio there? I don't hear the race.
I've got audio in my ears. Let me get that shared audio. And to
there we go. Now
our point, as we stated earlier, race featuring Neil Bonnet, Bobby Allison, and Kyle Petty, who we did skimp on. He did win the World 600 the previous season, so good stat for Kyle Petty there. Was this before he like won all those races or started winning those races at Rockingham, and then Felix was like, "Oh, if you win the race in the pole, I'll give you a Rolls Royce"?
I think this was before that, yeah. And actually, speaking of the Pettys, Richard Petty actually did a test before the season at Calder Park. And I guess set like the track record there. It was like 28.2 seconds. I'm not sure what the speeds were for this race in qualifying, but at the time it was the track record.
Welcome on the Australian television
Richard Petty,
network
man.
to our telecast
He's a legend.
of the Goodyear 500, the first NASCAR stock car race ever held outside of North America. And of course, it's being held
on the stream there. You're only going to see James and I in the top corner when we're talking, but you don't want to watch us. You want to watch the race.
This is going to be for them as
Yeah,
well.
we're just here to make like a comment every now and then when we see something interesting.
South to southeasterly winds strengthening this afternoon.
Also, the stream or this race was uploaded to a specific YouTube channel. We want to give that channel a shout out.
NASCAR, the National Association of Stock Car Racing, was formed in the United States 40 years ago by Daytona businessman Bill France. From humble beginnings, NASCAR has
shout out to Monday Morning Racer for joining us and being in the chat right now.
Hey, what's up?
Formula One boss Bernie Eccleston
go check out his podcast. It's really great. He's always got a great guest too from the NHRA, someone that's in the industry that can give you some really great insights.
Last year, over 2.7 million fans turned out for the 30-race schedule.
Hopefully, he had a really good holiday season. He's enjoying his off-season a little bit too.
Cars are rolling out. I love this broadcast because they just condense it to the best stuff.
We thought that we were running for some pretty good prize money back then when you could win the Daytona 500 and win about $25,000. And you thought, boy, that's a big day. But now they get upwards of $200,000. And even the smallest race on the circuit pays more now than the Daytona 500 did back then.
That's just crazy to think of the economics in racing and like how much prize money has like risen. So like people who like won championships in all the races in the 70s won significantly less money than people in the 80s, and so on and so on.
The emphasis that they put on career earnings on everyone's stat sheet back then, they put career earnings. Now NASCAR doesn't even, since the charger system started, they don't even publish the purse anymore. So
also, I think it's kind of like a rude move to be like, yeah, this race car driver's earning like this much money, and to most people, they're like, they're earning that much money to drive a car in circles. It's like,
they can also die. So that's why they get paid what they do.
And they're also very skilled. They're one of a kind.
Well, that certainly was the belief and theory in the beginning.
It might be a little choppy at times. That's just the Zoom. I apologize for that. But
yeah, sorry about the Zoom. And we're gonna give a shout out to Super 100. Go check out their YouTube channel. They were the ones who uploaded this content. They actually upload a lot of Australian racing content. They're based out of Australia. They used to work with the production company involved with Channel 7 Sports, Sydney, Australia, and Mike Raymond. They were the ones who are credited with this project and this production. So we thank them for producing it, and we also thank Super 100 miles per hour, Super 100 mph on YouTube for having it uploaded. So if you want to watch this without us talking, go check their YouTube channel out later on.
And represents a
Australian racing
investment by promoter
The really cool thing I like about this race is the fact that it has Australian commentators. So they didn't bring in like Chris Economaki is there on pit road as kind of an American voice, but they stuck with locals to call the race, which is really cool. And you can really see the knowledge that they have of NASCAR and the love that they have for NASCAR, even over in Australia. So really cool. There's a whole packed house of 46,000 people to watch this race. Now we're getting some information on just the building of the speedway.
Bob Jane looks like a baller with that cigar.
Unfortunately, the speedway only lasted less than 20 years, so it's too bad.
Yeah. I mean, as a functioning raceway, but it stood the test of time so far.
We've done obviously more than we thought we've done, because the accolades from the United States people that are here indicate we've done better than we thought.
It's a beautiful place. The track looks nice. You know, I started around there earlier today.
50-year-old Bobby Allison at this time, still winning races
really,
like a baller at age 50.
Well impressed with the whole facility. It's a beautiful entrance.
I'm trying to read his hat.
You know, the tunnel from the garage work area here into the pit area is something I think every track in the U.S. could use. And
aircraft racing, Piper
beautiful.
Aircraft
we
racing.
had heard a lot about it, and it was designed after Charlotte, North Carolina. But it's a lot more complete than I expected. So many
they joke that he's
build the track, but they don't
he's 60 years old. They joke that he's like the Medicare guy because he's like old enough to collect old age pension at this point.
I mean, it's crazy that like he's still running and in this
it's been great.
Pretty competitive field in Australia at that age, and we really don't see any drivers at that age out there, except for Martin Shepard.
Today becomes a fact of life in Australia. $1 million end of season event is on the drawing board.
The white wheels are so adorable, but I love that Buick.
Like some of the number fonts at this point too are just really cool, and some are really ugly, and some interesting numbers too. Like we don't see a lot of these numbers anymore in NASCAR, like 81, stuff like that. You know, 83. Like nobody runs those numbers anymore.
As we have CAMS, the Confederation of Australian Motorsport. NASCAR, the body that presides over stock car racing, has almost uniquely bred a form of motorsport where performance equality is of paramount importance. No one brand of vehicle is particularly dominant. However, the classic Ford GM battle is alive.
That Bobby Allison's paint scheme. I know, right? Absolutely. It's like graphic design is my passion to the max. I love it.
And then you have this big old race car to put all of that rainbow on there. So beautiful.
The thin sheet metal disguise of these chunky beasts.
These graphics, man, like are cutting edge for the time.
Honestly, for 1988, this is state of the art.
This is like state of the art, but like to try to replicate this nowadays is pretty tough too.
358 cubic inches or 6 liters, and the way the power goes to the ground.
Is that another Foster's car?
12-inch control.
Foster's with
yeah, there's two of them in this race.
It's like Copart.com back in the day with the truck
no-nonsense
series.
rules work because they're strictly enforced, and NASCAR officials pay attention to detail, so nobody bends the rules or anything else.
They went to a template system several years ago, and so the bodies can't be cheated in any way. The officials have a template that they set on the car that makes the car
Those are some extreme sunglasses, Mark, I'm not gonna lie.
So
those are a cross between sunglasses and like ski when you're skiing. Yeah, ski goggles.
Yeah.
I followed this cat that skis on TikTok.
If you think oval track racing is easy, then think again.
Sorry, no, he has too much oversteer, James. Because we're Australia.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. We're on the other side of the world.
The real thing.
Oversteer.
Those cars are actually upside down right now.
That's why it's not working.
Shout out to peeps in Australia. It's already tomorrow. I hope you're already enjoying 2021 there.
Yeah, I know, right? They're way ahead of us. So did they get the PS4?
COVID-less paradise.
They're closer to the future than anywhere else.
Mikey, look how young Mikey is.
I love his hair. Where can I get a perm like that, Mikey?
Tech officials to enforce those rules. All of us come with basically the same equipment and our individual motivations.
I just love those Oldsmobiles.
In a departure from traditional NASCAR qualifying procedure, drivers had the opportunity to better their Friday best with a Saturday session.
Yeah, that's something that became common in the 90s. You know what I mean? The second round qualifying.
And it's really forgotten about. Not a lot of people talk about it. Like even in the Jeff Gordon era, they were doing Saturday qualifying and stuff. You know?
What really sucks is like, hopefully in the future we can find some more of them, but I can't find any second round qualifying coverage at all. And there's some like really interesting stories from second round qualifying, you know? And they would air that Also, Neil Bonnet's hat that he's wearing, this Valvoline hat, is so baller. It's got like this floral print on it. It's so out of place. It seems very perfect for this time period, but it's very random for the 80s, man. I'm digging it, and I'm digging his vibe. Dave Marcus just, you know, he's close to Japan, so he's Tokyo drifting. Literally. Quite literally. Good effort on him. He just maybe didn't get that little valence on the front. And
Alan Grice, very impressive. He qualified, I think, 3rd for this race. And he's
look at him work that wheel, dude.
Yeah, competing against Winston Cup drivers.
Well, we've gone back to the setup we had on Thursday. Friday was very
looks like the guy from Motorhead.
And we lost our car.
It's Lemmy. Lemmy is God. Also, quick RIP to MFD, man. He passed.
Yeah.
It's a bummer, man.
So did also Aldo Andretti, Mario Andretti's twin brother, John's father. So RIP to the and our condolences to the Andretti family as well. Aldo passed away yesterday.
However, the best on the day was delivered
by Neil Bonnet.
Neil Bonnet just flexing with his Cup team there. I mean, but this is probably one of the coolest teams from that era. That number 75 Valvoline team. They were so successful with Bonnet. They were pretty successful with Morgan Shepherd too when he drove for him as well.
And that's like what I'm saying before. How come nobody runs numbers like 75 anymore?
Yeah,
those numbers are sick.
But boy, Bobby put us to work today. He's right there with us. We beat him like a couple of hundredths of a second. And Alan Grice really picked up today. We're going to have our work cut out for us come Sunday.
Yeah.
So here's how the top 10 will line up for today's
Bonnet
Goodyear
and Allison,
500.
of course.
That's right.
Alan Grice in 3rd, though. That's very impressive. And Ron Esau in 5th. He's a West Coast guy who doesn't really run a lot of races. And got sponsorship from Eurovox and McDonald's.
6, David Sosby in the Ford. 7, Chicago's Bill Venturini.
Yeah, it's our boy, Bill Venturini. You know, I got a feel for Bill right now. I got a pull for him. Because he's not really like a southerner, you know what I mean? He's from Illinois.
Chris giving us the lowdown on tires now.
I like how he just stands on the tire.
These are $170 each. They're a lot more than that now, but
He's like, my shoes are worth 3 times that because they walk so much.
We'll be here to report.
Bob Jane, that is at this moment, quite
that is animal cruelty.
I think it's only fitting that Bob Jane will give
I was trying to put it nicely, but all right. Let's call it like we see it, Peter. Okay.
Random.
That's, yeah. It's not NASCAR in the 80s. You can't have NASCAR in the 80s without a Confederate flag.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
And that's where we stand on that, and that's where we'll end that conversation.
That was a really lame command. They really missed out by not having the Crocodile Dundee guy do the command.
Did that movie come out at this point?
Oh, good question. I'll Google it.
I feel like it came out this year, maybe, like 88, but I'm not sure. I've never really seen that movie.
Pace car being driven by John.
Oh, it came out in 86.
Oh yeah, so missed opportunity.
So this is the other thing we should mention too, though. This is when the United States was in a sort of infatuation with Australia because of the movie Crocodile Dundee. Like tourism in Australia is an all-time high, but green flag.
Bobby Allison trials. Alan Grice
Neil
did
Bonnet
not
gets
miss
a
the
huge
start. He
run.
moves up very
I'm pretty
quickly
sure that
with
was agreed upon between those guys. They were like, hey man, you know, I'll lead the first lap and then you can just follow me and then we'll just see where it goes.
Straight clear of Bobby Allison. Alan Grice starting to pick them up as they head down there. Robin Best is
VIP club, very nice in the back
well
straightaway.
positioned. So too is Brad Knopfsinger. Watch them work the bank turns now as they come in for the completion
It's a
of
really
the
cool
first lap.
racetrack, man.
I wish iRacing could recreate this track. I mean, it still exists. They probably have a lot of...
Alan Grice is fighting for second. The crowd goes wild.
There you go. Allison just slides up the track.
Just lets him go.
Hey, there's a long race. You want it, you have it. That's a veteran move right there.
What an incredible performance from Alan Grice on the previous lap through
he wants the lead, man.
Oh yeah, but like I mean,
I can't get over how those Pontiacs looked back then. They were so sick.
Yeah, especially that Aero Coupe rear window that was basically on, I believe, all the GM cars at that time too.
Can Grice move up on the tail of Neil Bonnet? You betcha he can. Black flag being shown to one of the competitors. Can't quite pick up that number.
Nice little action cam here.
These cars are travelling 170 miles an hour down the straight. And we take race cam now from Alan Grice's car, the Foster's Oldsmobile, as he heads down the back straight. He's tailing Neil Bonnet, car number 75, the Valvoline Pontiac, and they're already coming up
On a slow car to put a lap, we'll watch Bonnet try and work down the
Saw on that wheel.
Grice sits in pretty tight as well.
And you can hear like eggshell on that throttle. Not really getting on it.
Red gloves too, very Greg Moore. I like that.
I always like that you can when you can see the driver's hands. You know?
Yeah, these race cam setups they had back then, like this is a technology called race cam, and these were some of the first like really more compact in-car cameras that they had. They could put in multiple cars, and it wouldn't slow the field down or anything like that. And they could actually pivot them left and right and get really cool angles.
If I'm not mistaken, race cam wasn't that specifically an Australian? That's from Australia, right?
Yeah, so they did it for this event. Here, actually, there's a whole Wikipedia page on it. I'll educate some folks.
Yeah, because you can definitely see as oh, trouble. Race cam with a great angle here.
Alan Grice.
Look at Grice. He's going to keep it off of everything while we get a caution, though. It is.
Yes, we're going to get a yellow flag here.
Yellow flag
out. Yeah, here we go.
So that really sucks because Alan Grice was running incredibly well. And now he's going to the back of the field.
I believe that was a lap car that got into him, Mark.
And come off second best in those.
Yeah, Michael Waltrip off the start had issues and went right into the pits.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, man. It takes a lot to get these cars over here, man. It's something we probably will discuss in the future of this broadcast.
Lap 18.
I like the lap car on the inside. Gotta earn it back the hard way, buddy.
Car pulls to the infield. Don't worry about the car sitting there on the inside. That's a car that is already
was that painted for the restart zone? That's interesting.
Across the line, takes the green. Michael Waltrip gets the go-by there on the inside.
Car number 83, Sumner McKnight made a big run. That's the yellow Ford Thunderbird that you can see about 7 or 8 cars back in turn 1. So it's Bonnet, Allison, Michael Waltrip, many laps down on the road in 3rd position. Then a great strap on at the moment being headed by
good thing for Mike, he's back out on the track,
really
but
watching carefully here is Dave Marcus. That's a great shot of the
unfortunately
speed of these cars.
He's well down.
Coming off turn 4.
So I think there's 33 cars in this race altogether. So pretty solid field for an exhibition race in Australia.
Yeah, and you think about it too. How many did we name that were actual like American drivers?
7 or 8, like of top cup drivers, but it's mostly American. Think about 22, 23 Americans, and then Australians and 1 Canadian.
Shout out to the Canadian making it all the way over there, even though North America's all in the same place. But I mean, kind of to that point, it's good that there's more or a good handful of Australian racers in here because you need to make this sustainable in Australia, and you need Australian racers to make it sustainable. So.
Dave's been having some problems getting the car to handle. Had a big lose yesterday in qualifying. So the time that he set on Friday was the time.
Yeah, I love that Junior threw back to one of those. I think it was technically Kelly Arbros.
Taking the lead. Not putting up much of a fight there. This is a gentleman's agreement. They're just racing each other nice and easy.
Oh yeah, they know they got to save those tires. I mean, come on.
It's an exhibition, and you want to put on a good show for the fans, right? You want there to be lots of lead changes, and you know, like it's all about demonstrating NASCAR to the Australian market.
And not only that, but you think of these two guys. They've raced each other so many times. They're totally comfortable going door to door, side by side with each other. You know what that guy's going to do. So definitely adds to the entertainment factor. They're Dyson, man.
But Bonnet chops. Hangs in there on the outside, and Bobby Allison coming now once again onto the back straight. Bonnet has the run of the race.
It's very interesting that neither the top nor bottom groove is preferred. You can still run each lane and be pretty fast and run side by side.
Closer can you get? There's the view from race cam. Bobby Allison just feeding back on the inside.
So I was Googling race cam. So yeah, video camera system used primarily in motor racing. It was developed by 7 Network in Australia, which is this broadcast.
It's very interesting.
Used in 1979 at the endurance race at Bathurst.
Huh. See, like it's very interesting that like all this technology that we see today, it's very commonplace. You know, the track cam, onboard cams, all these things that we kind of take for granted. We're so ahead of their time almost in these periods when they're first being introduced. Roof cams, track cams. I mean, when we started taking men away from the wall camera, I mean, that was a pretty big one.
This is in fact the first race where these cameras were used in NASCAR. Nice. And they became commonplace in the US after that.
Look at Dave Marcus coming in here. He wants a piece of this action. He's going to go up to second place.
Yeah, it's cool to see Dave Marcus competing, man, because I think most people that are probably watching this right now think of Dave Marcus in like the early 2000s, you know, as kind of a
part-time stars,
part-time car, and you know, but this is like he was baller. He was 47 years old during this race, so he raced very, very late.
You look, I think you also remember his Dale Jr. download where he was on there, just him talking about his time in the 71 car and how strong of a championship contender he was. I mean, he was a threat for the Winston Cup, and you know, he was one of the greatest privateers in NASCAR history. I mean, he did it his way, and he didn't have that many great opportunities. What? 3 wide for the woo! Those Winston Cup boys, man.
And up on the inside too, Esau comes on
Ron
strong
Esau
as he works the back straight.
coming out of
Marcus went
nowhere.
in pretty deep and got
On the
wide.
78 car. He's actually racing for charity, so he's going to donate all the money he makes to his charity. We'll hear from him later on.
He really breaks late into turns 1 and 3. So the leader at the moment, car number 75, Neil Bonnet, enjoying a fairly
I watched this race this morning in preparation while I was riding my exercise bike, and like I was like, my wife could hear me yelling and stuff from downstairs, and I was reacting. So it's a baller race, man.
I haven't watched this race in like a year because I was like, I want to enjoy it. I want to like react to the things that are happening, because it is a great race. But the side things that they put on too, it just makes the overall broadcast.
And that's the thing about Australian motorsports, man. If you've never seen a supercars broadcast, it's the best broadcast of motor racing you'll ever watch in your life. It's perfectly produced. In cars they have. It's unbelievably amazing.
Not only that, man, like the biggest thing is, I think this not being live makes it better, because then you don't have to be constrained to the live format. They can just produce whatever they want, you know?
It's Alan Grice working his way back through the field now. He's up to 16.
I wonder if they went and got all the roll bar padding they could get. Jeez, 3 wide. Look at those American double zeros. Like even people, dang.
Might as well just put like an American eagle like on the hood, you know?
Now he gets out of the draft now and comes down the inside of him.
Look at that.
McRae was totally sideways as he went into turn 1 that time.
That's an 08, excuse me.
Gets underneath him,
well, you can barely tell because of the numbers. That would never be allowed now.
No, it breaks design protocol.
The Alabama gang. Car number 12, Bobby Allison in the Buick.
The Alabama gang.
The Valvoline Pontiac worked the back
yeah, those Alabama boys. That Raymock Enterprises car, man, I can't get over how good that looks.
It looks unreal, man.
You know what I think the best part is the red chassis, how it pops on the white. You know what I mean?
So they are 300 in the straights, and there's a spin coming into turn 2.
Looks like we got a spinner.
We've had one go down. There's that Terry Byers again. We'll wait and see. He's up the middle of the racetrack. Now tries to pull it down as the leaders go through. There's the blue smoke, Terry Byers.
Twoey's
the Twoey's entry from Wollongong.
It looks like the Robert Yates numbers.
Boy,
it does.
Goodyear Eagles.
This is going to give us a caution here.
Between turns 1 and 2.
That's a nice slide. Oh!
The field comes by.
Well, it's interesting what's happening.
And we're back with the
here.
Economan.
Neil Bonnet is apparently going to bypass this yellow flag. They've got 80 laps worth of fuel on that car. Bobby Allison is taking advantage of it. Now, this could win or lose the race for one of those gentlemen. If it's a green flag situation from here to the end, pardon me, Bonnet's going to be in good shape. Allison has just built another pit stop into this race for him by stopping now.
Down for the start. In fact, it'll be Neil
Bonnet didn't pit. Decided to stay out.
Marcus at 71. 28 then coming up through the field. Gary Collins into third, and Alan Grice is back to 4th place as they go into turn number 1.
Alan Grice back in the top 5 because I guess he didn't pit, I would assume, because he spun earlier. So he's back in the top 5.
Let's read
now
he
cycled through.
At the moment on the Castrol scoreboard. Neil Bonnet is your race leader. Dave Marcus runs in 2nd. Alan Grice of Australia is 3rd. Gary Collins 4th.
The music person for this.
Yeah, some solid 80s tracks, man.
Yeah, we're lap 69.
Nice.
They know how to even come back in the broadcast.
Continues to lead the race, and second is
it's still a closely contested race, my man. Yeah, 3 under a blanket basically as it goes.
Yeah, nobody really pulls away in this race.
I feel like they all know what they have, and they know when to push each other to make it, like you're saying, entertaining for the fans. But, you know, in the end, they know when the checker flag flies and when it pays out.
And here's Allison setting up here and getting in 2 of them for the price of 1.
Look at that bushel of traffic in front of
Here's
them.
Allison pulling out of the draft. Tries to slam down the inside of Dave Marcus and regain second. The sprint down into turn number 1. He couldn't pull it that time. Marcus, how close are they? This time he gets him on the
That's a lot of trust right there, you know.
Marcus on the
Marcus is
outside.
going to
They're
get the
coming
run
into a
off the
wall of
corner,
cars,
though.
including Terry Byers, Bobby Allison looking for second
clears
spot.
him.
Marcus runs in second.
And now he's making a charge for Neil Bonnet.
Lap 73. And this is the scrap.
They're coming up on some lap cars now,
Jim
yeah.
Richards.
Yeah.
Watch the passing now.
Pick a lane and go with it, you know.
There's Allison, caught out just a little wide that time. Finds the run down on the inside.
I love the
now.
green
It's
and
Neil
blue
Bonnet.
walls with the
Moves
branding.
onto the back straight. Marcus thinking about a run
I think it's
down
probably
the outside.
BP,
Will he switch back to the
British
inside?
Petroleum on there.
Gets the free draft.
And then, of
That's
course,
not a
like,
plug, British Petroleum.
boatload of, Foster's banners and Goodyear banners.
I like the Coca-Cola. You have Coca-Cola, and then you have one next to it that says Coke. It's like it doesn't matter which way you say it.
Down the inside. There is not much room down there, but he's found a neat little groove down there as he gets into turn number 1.
Bonnet
Slice and
will
dice, and this is like not going to end well.
Marcus still trails through there. Allison,
Well, I mean, they're still racing each other hard, even though the leaders are flying by them and racing each other as well.
It's a 280 lap race, man. So this is 500 kilometers, not 500 miles.
There's Allison, back caught in that pack.
Because we're in Australia.
Working away at the inside groove.
We're upside down, and we're using the metric
Working
system.
on here for the last couple of laps. See if he can break free.
I'm down here in Herschel McGriff's
Come on, that flag just keeps
scheduled
popping
pit
up,
stop
man.
For this reason here, a cut tire. Now, something is out there on the racetrack that did this to McGriff's tire, car number 98. He had to come in for an emergency pit stop, and of course he took on fuel and got back out. One of the trials and tribulations of super.
I love this dude just standing next to him.
Back to you, Mike.
I think he was the tire specialist, and he was expecting to be interviewed.
Nope.
On board with the man, Dick Johnson. Look at him go.
If you're not,
That's a
if
rough
you're
ride.
familiar with Dick Johnson, look him up because he's a hero in Australia.
There's some really great races with him. If you look him up throughout the late 80s, Benny Parsons, I think, had him as an in-race reporter one time, or twice actually during the road course races.
Oh, look at the blue rims.
I know, right? It's such a beautiful car. And then like the big like.
Jim Richards, car number 1.
These are. It's interesting. He's got all the same sponsors that were on his.
Oh, and we've got another car.
Oh, and now we got a big accident.
Oh, and Johnson's involved.
And there's Dickie and
Real schmozzling.
Oh no!
Alan Grice piles to the
Bro,
we're like
3, 4, 5.
he had so much time to slow down. Like what?
That was a chunk of time.
That's just like max the gas and drive through the smoke. Like he thought
that
he
was
was
Days of Thunder before there was Days of Thunder.
Jeez, he had so much time to slow down. Like I don't get it.
Dickie's out. He's all right, but jeez,
That's 2 in a
Clearly
week.
he's not happy.
Well, he'd almost come to a dead stop in the center of the
You were
track.
wrecked before Grice ever hit you, man. Don't worry.
Yeah,
about
he
it.
was wrecked, but at least he would have drove back. But I mean,
Johnson, I'll never know.
All those photographers running to get the shot.
It will be pretty spectacular. Bill Venturini having his second.
our boy.
Prang. Let's have a
Bill
look at the
Venturini's
replay of
involved.
just exactly
What happened here?
Turn number 3 we're looking at is that David Sousby. Oh no, this has happened further up the track.
And then, yeah, he just gets collected there. And then, man, Alan Grice, you had so much time to slow down. Oh my gosh! Oh my God! Did he hit a patch of oil or something? Like,
I don't know about that, man. Like, I agree with you. He had so much time, and he might have hit something on the track. There might have been some liquid on the track too that caused the initial wreck. But man, he came flying solely into Dick Johnson.
Two of the Australian runners in the field, Alan Grice and Dick Johnson. That's Harry Gallart's car.
Placings on the Castrol scoreboard. Dave Marcus, the leader in car 71.
Yeah, get used to that, people. Dave Marcus in the lead right there.
Sumner McKnight up to 4th place now in car number 83.
Chad Little having a good run so far,
top
though.
5, car 19, Chad Little.
Alan Grice being taken to the infield hospital, neck in a brace. Just
Mark,
a
I
cautionary
would have to
measure,
say that's our
course,
big
after
wreck for
taking
the
a pretty
day.
Solid wallop.
Yes, Nate, Arca brakes. Good call. That's what that is. That's Arca brakes.
Yeah, that is Arca brakes. Oh man, I hate watching Arca races from the mid 2000s. You know, speaking of that really quick on a sidebar, as we get this replay. Oh, Dick Johnson said nowhere to go.
I want to see this from Alan Grice's in-car.
Yeah, I want to see him just not stopping. Or like eating either that or hitting.
He was like taking a sip of his Coke or something, probably.
No, I think he was having a Foster's.
It's Australia.
Second hit's what's worse when he comes into the 6 car and changes direction.
Here's
Okay,
another
so you get
angle.
another angle.
And it's all super.
This is the Dick Johnson ISO
Number
camera.
17 car.
He said
Books,
nowhere to
the
go.
96 car.
Yeah.
Absolutely nowhere to go. And he was tracking high.
Flash fire.
Oh.
Once again, how quick did Grice arrive in that accident?
Of course, he had no brakes. We made mention of that. He mentioned earlier to our race cam people that he had a problem.
Oh, we had brake problems.
Car number 6.
So
there in fact were 8 cars involved.
I mean,
in that. Bill Venturini was.
You could see too on that restart, he was getting up through the gears very tentatively, just in case he needed to slow down
There's a lot
again.
of souvenirs for sale. Souvenirs of the Calder Thunderdome. Parts that have been taken off of his car as a result of that crash.
I
and
feel
they're not
that.
through taking weight off this car. It'll be in again while they do some more work. Sotheby's a persistent performer.
I love Chris's voice. He could have called like horse racing in the 40s.
I love his outfit. I love how professional he is with his tie and his button-down
short
shirt.
sleeve shirt with the tie, yeah.
Tucked in as well. Some nice pants. I try to, if I can incorporate
the 28 car coming in.
like a little bit of his style
Look at a race
into my
cam
look, that'd be
replay.
nice.
Again, we have this covered from just about every angle today.
What I was going to say
here
was
we
like
go from Dickie's in car.
Johnson,
Oh,
of
okay.
course.
This is going to be
And you'll see as
well, it's
he
going to be a
moves
bit
onto
too,
the
because now we're going down the back
Dick
straight
was
away.
making great progress. Head down the back straight coming up now into turn number 3, and the touch has already started. There's one that's sideways, and watch how quickly it appears as Dick hits it.
The camera operator gets scared.
Race cam spins around.
To the
Dick
left.
has already stopped.
I think the camera's a little bit
That was
loose,
before
but
he received the clout from Alan Grice.
The second wreck in 3 days
Oh.
for you, Dick. You don't want this to be habit forming.
I think that's just the way this sort of motor racing is, Peter. It's pretty cut and thrust, and I don't mind that at all. It's just it annoys me when you become part of somebody else's accident. You know, when you've got absolutely.
you know, to
no control
AJM's
over
point, if it
whatsoever.
was that,
I picked what I
it
thought
could have
was a
been
hole. Before I
Archibad.
knew it, somebody had
It
filled
wasn't
and
Archibad
then somebody
yet.
hit me.
No
and then
offense,
somebody
Art.
else hit
Second
me,
wreck in
just
2
kept going
days.
and
Dick
going.
don't want to make a habit of this. I love it.
At all, Dick, is it a right
Like, can you imagine if like
One would never know.
if Jamie
These
Little
things are
said
pretty
that to
tough.
somebody
It's
like
been in the
now?
front, but I think it'd be able to straighten it
Well,
out.
first off, you got to
It
have
just
some
bits off,
cojones to
bits
say that to
Yeah,
somebody.
exactly.
and so on.
Right
I
to their
think,
face.
Yeah, we'll have it up and
That was
running.
just-
We've got
this
another
was Tony
car
Stewart, the
anyway,
interview would be
that's what we
over.
need too, I
Oh,
think.
literally.
There's the race. Yeah, the race cam still working in the
That
vehicle
car
of
is
Alan
destroyed,
Grice,
my
just
man.
doing that 360 pan. Just look at the damage out the back.
Yeah, it's too
The back
bad.
of his car and the race starter was about out to here. It's been shortened up by 3 to 4
It's broken
feet.
the rear glass.
And this is all heavy racing
Driving a
construction
hatchback
with
now.
chrome moly tubing. Fortunately, the fuel cell
It's gonna need more
inside
than a rear
here
clip.
maintained its structure. This fuel cell here bent and battered, but the rubber sack inside did not burst. Had it burst, it most certainly would have been a dangerous fire. You can see the tubing here, how it's bent. Grice really took a hit, and we certainly hope he's okay in the hospital. Back to you, Mike.
Well, the pace car, in fact, will
All right, so we're gonna get back to racing now. We got that all cleaned up.
Across the line now,
Green,
going through
green,
to
green.
take
Oh, I
over the
love
lead
this
as the
restart
race
graphic work.
recommences.
Look how that is.
Petty
Look
was
at
on
that
the
green
outside,
flag.
32.
It's really
That's
wavy.
an early
On the inside,
GIF,
and Jimmy
actually.
Richards is in
Yeah.
amongst them. Petty
You know, that's
get the
better
best of
than like the
starts
wacky wavy
as they swing
inflatable
through
arm flailing
onto the back
tube
straight.
man.
Yes, indeed.
The Kroger
So
car
Bonnet's
now
got a bit of
comes
a
down the
lead
back
now,
straight.
but man, dude, like
Kyle Petty,
Look at
and
Kyle
Kyle
Petty
Petty's
there.
up there.
Oh, he's slipping back. Is he driving the Kroger car?
He is driving the Kroger car. Yes.
Interesting.
Well, you'd think that was
Kroger in
a
Australia.
case of severe lack of
They might have
horsepower
invested in a
for
grocery
Kyle
store
Petty.
down there.
Car being gobbled up down the back straight.
I also love,
So it's
I just
Ronnie
love the
Saw
look of
who
all these
leads.
cars. I know you've mentioned the
Ruben
Pontiac
Garcia in
specifically,
second
but the
place,
Monte
car number 98,
Carlos,
Herschel
the
McGriff.
It looks sick, man.
Thunderbirds.
And you see from the in-car, it just looks like you're taking like your parents' car out for a nice like cruise on a Sunday afternoon. You know, like
I
the
think
big
the biggest thing
dash
is
and
like
everything.
the big dash really like
Where there's
makes
a
you more
bench
immersed.
seat in the front with the lap belts. You know, my parents had a car like that when I was a kid, when I was like 5.
Oh yeah, I always was a
Minivan
minivan
kid,
kid,
They make their way
unfortunately.
past a slower car coming onto the back straight.
I can't
Ronnie
relate.
Sound, the Jim Robinson
We had
entry.
a bunch
The
bench
Eurobox car,
the
radio car, up into the
bench seat
left-hander,
in
and
the
here is
truck,
Neil Bonnet, the
but
man
yeah,
applying
car.
plenty of pressure. Allison
Or
thinking about
what
a
do
run
we
race.
call them in
Outside,
Australia,
he's
man?
gonna try and pull it. They're coming down into the
Utes,
triangle
right?
of Bobby
Utes.
Allison trying to
Exactly.
get down
Utes.
the outside.
Utes.
Bonnet attacks the inside.
Because we're
They're
watching
side
an
by
Australian
side as
race
Bonnet
now.
looks for the inside pass, but Bobby Allison down the outside, getting plenty of pressure.
This lap car is trying to
Penny full of heroes
get get away, but
they work their way out of turn number 2,
it's Ronnie
coming onto the back
Esow,
straight.
78
It all
car.
depends now on race
he's trying. I love his 78 though. It's very
Gradient
fade. So big too. That is
God.
That'd be illegal in so many. Could break so many of the codes of design right now.
These are like bad Saturday Night Short Track, like street stock paint, like numbers.
You know, I also feel like there's a bit of, no offense if we're offending something here, but there is a bit of cultural like influence, and by that I mean like, you know, in Australia or in Western Hemisphere there might be a little bit going on design-wise. You know, every region's got its own thing. Maybe there they like gradients more.
Maybe
here we like pinstripes. Look at that.
I love these camera angles too. The cars look so fast.
It's you know what it is. And I think Mike Joy was really trying to emphasize on it. Is you get it down almost to like a headlight level at times. You really get that emphasis of speed. If they're too high up, you don't really get that.
We're riding with Neil Bonnet.
Ruben Garcia in 5th.
Pontiac V8.
Neil Bonnet. Look at his feet. You can see his feet working, and I love the branding on his gloves. Shout out to Valvoline for using every inch of Neil Bonnet.
Number 4 heading back down the start, finishing straight. Coming up on a slower car, I think that in fact is Michael Waltrip at car number 30, still circulating.
Well, it's good that Mikey's still out there, but unfortunately he's going to go another lap down
in
here.
and out of the pits, and a very quick stop for Jimmy Richards.
Just get out there, run all the laps, have a good time, enjoy the rest of your time in Australia.
Yeah, it seems like he might have dinged up his car at one point, my man. Look at that.
Working the draft, going down the back straight.
Right rear, the little ding ding.
The 30 car.
Bumper drag.
Bonnet eases by him.
I love the actual gauges. They're not digital gauges.
No, but those are legit gauges. Like
you see, like some of them like moving as he hits bumps.
And just like he's got like the regular rear view mirror. Like this is one of the things that makes NASCAR so awesome.
Just notice how much Allison's car is.
As much as like the next gen's gonna have the sequential shifter, and I love that, I'm gonna miss the fact that they had an H pattern. They're one of the last racing series with an H pattern. You know, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, if they could only have had more than 4 gears in the H pattern, I think it would have been cool. What are you gonna do?
He said to me yesterday that in turn
well, I mean, they technically did because they had 4 gears and then reverse.
Because there's a very, very slight rise in the track. You can't detect it with the eye when you're standing there, but you can sure feel it at 170 miles an hour.
Well, I'll say this, Mark. Allison and Bonnet have been attracted to each other like magnets. But let's hear a little bit more about Bobby Allison.
Of Hueytown, Alabama, has been burning up the Winston Cup Trail for 27 years. The leader of the Alabama gang is a triple Daytona 500 winner and also took out the national
I like how this is
championship
presented to you by Nissan.
1993. He's a past master of the short tracks with career winnings which have just stretched over the $7 million mark. While racing has been kind to Bobby Allison over the years,
crash
he's also
that
taken a
gave us
few
restrictor
wild
plates.
rides, like this car destroying
Alabama
active
Slammer
Talladega last year. A few weeks later, he came back to win the Pepsi Firecracker 400 at Daytona, just to prove you can't keep a good man down.
Can't keep a good man down.
88 has been great to date for the Alabama Throttle Jammer.
That
He
paint
opened a
scheme's
fortnight ago by winning the Daytona
Alabama
125
Throttle
mile
Jammer.
qualifier, and the next day survived some wild wrecks to land the Goodies 300 Grand National Classic.
Yeah, that's right.
Day 3, he took the Winston
He was
Cup
the
opener
first
in a
driver to
thrilling
win
last lap
the Grand
shootout
National
with his
race
own
and the
son,
500.
And he won his qualifying race.
Yeah, if he had only won the shootout, he would have won it all.
Soil here today. So place your bets, folks. Heaven knows Mr. Allison is on a roll.
I just love that they had a instrumental synth version of that song.
Neil Bonnet goes
That was
back into the
pretty
lead. Very quick pit stop this.
Look how many people are over the wall. No helmets.
At least
fighters.
he's got the full like head thing on.
He's got a headstock, yeah.
Never did.
No
Noticed
gloves.
that at Daytona a couple of weeks ago as
Bobby
well.
Allison, yep. Check it out, ladies. He's got a ring on that finger, and he's not afraid to show it off.
He's taken.
Oh, he
No
stalled
gloves.
it though.
But they'll fire him off, and he gets going again.
Notice how hard the cars are to get mobile.
Fun fact: you did not need helmets on pit road until 2000.
Ruben Garcia comes to the pits.
Shocking.
Ruben. Gas only.
Like 2002.
That was the
2002. Well, most guys wore them, but you didn't technically have to have them. 2002.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, wild, wild west. Unfortunately, you know, I think that was one of those last times where NASCAR unfortunately had to learn from circumstances to implement something. You know, from then on out, they were very ahead of themselves to implement safety measures. prevent
in
things
fact
from
is the
happening.
longest spell
Fuel in
we've
the
had
car
in
with
the race without a
blue
yellow
jeans
flag,
on.
so I wouldn't imagine it'd be too long before
That crew
Neil Bonnet
uniform,
in the
though, those
Valvoline
pants
car.
at the pinstripe.
As he is our race leader.
See, that's what's hard, Mark. You know, Mark and I were looking for crew shirts the other day on eBay, just messing around. It's hard to find the uniform with the shirt and the pants
number 78 car.
The car was smoking.
That dude's in the car.
Bit of pit activity at the moment.
No, it's Ron Esau. Looks like they might be done.
Back out of the pits.
Unfortunately, he's got one of Dick Johnson's guys over there helping him out.
In his number, he has his
name.
name.
The pits in car number 75. So the
all you
race
guys name a number, name on top of the car. In case you forgot it.
And standing by
Bro,
is
just
Chris
carrying two
Conrad.
tires with it. No gloves.
Here we go.
Now, this is an American crew. It's right side tires, refueling, and if it's a green flag,
Hey, buddy, fueling's wearing a fire
going
suit.
to work.
his last pit stop.
1, 2 cans of Unicount fuel will go in.
Crew is still fueling up.
Looks like it's going to be a 2-tire stop here.
Let me throw my slacks and my polo on, and I'll fuel your car.
I love the welds over where the door handle would go on that.
Thank you, Chris.
That's
That was
those
a very,
panels
very
are pure
well-drilled,
from
pit stop for Neil Bonnet.
manufacturer. Also, there were no pit road speed limits really at this point either.
Nope.
You see how he just jetted
As
out.
fast as you want.
Exactly.
75
Next
goes
year,
in
though,
second
right,
place,
2 years
that's
from
the new
now.
leader, Dave Marcus.
That's a piece of content.
I believe is still to pit.
Correct. Chad Little's
I love these
pitted,
big.
so
You see how big the billboards
really,
are?
Dave is the last one of the top three
covers
to make his move and show his
A
cards.
good 20 feet
As soon
high.
as he heads to the pits, that will put Bonnet back
Probably
in
comes
front,
several hundred
and
feet
probably
behind.
Bobby Allison pretty close behind him. It's been the
Well,
way.
it looks like Dave Marcus is the last to pit from the leaders during this cycle of green flag pit stops.
Still watching out for the half-century Bobby Allison, though, at the moment. The guy just seems to have the knowledge when it comes to these long races. He took his stop early. He dropped back to 4th.
Really good
I have a
attendance here.
feeling that we haven't seen the last of him. Dave Marcus has been a professional in stock car racing for about
46,000.
20 years, 572
Oh, look at
career
his
starts,
career
5
earnings.
major
Dave
wins.
Marcus has earned,
What about
at
the
this
career
point,
earnings?
$2.7 million.
And at only 46
And I'm pretty
years
sure he
of
put
age, he could have the
all
best
of that
part
back
another
into
15
racing.
years to go.
Because that's the kind of guy he is. Shout out to Dave
Well,
Marcus.
Herschel
And they just said at
60
age
years of
46,
age,
he
and
could
he's
race
still
for another
running, his
15
racing.
years.
They do
So at
really
this
hang in
point,
there.
guys are racing well into their
Peter
50s,
Mackay,
not
though, is
like
in the pits and has
nowadays
this
where you're
report.
washed up when you're
Yes, thank you,
28.
Michael. One of the sentimental
Yeah.
favourites here today was Ron Esau. He ran up hard with the
Let's hear from
leaders
Ron,
in the
though,
early laps.
putting his hats on.
Some bad news now. They've just pushed the car behind the pits. Ron, can you tell us what's the problem?
I think a broken camshaft in the engine. We won't be able to go back out. But I'd like to thank Eurobach and McDonald's and everybody for giving me, and the Jim Robinson family for giving me the opportunity to get out here and run hard and win some money for the Jim Robinson Hospital Fund.
You know how much you'll get out of this?
I don't know, but I think we impressed a lot of people on the cars capable of running good. Maybe we could sell the car, anything to turn it all into some money for Jim.
And
Yeah, that's a good cause right there. And look, great optimism. I know he's out of the race, but he had his fun. They got their message across for a great cause, man. And it's an interesting method of getting money. As Marcus, man, he's coming down the pit road fast.
That's just the McCurse striking again there, James.
That's the initial McCurse, if you think about it.
He almost dived into the wrong pit.
Is this car sponsored by Molson Canadian?
Yes, it is.
Oh my God, it is too.
I was about to say, I see Canadian on his car.
Yeah.
Dave Marcus knows a beer. He knows Molson Canadian.
Imagine pitting a car in your
dope beer
The car is moving and they're still fueling it.
Get the second churn of fuel in there before he takes off.
For you younger viewers,
He's definitely out of his pit box.
That was a smooth stop from Dave Marcus.
22 seconds. What the heck?
Neil Bonnet is the race leader from Chad Little. Bobby Allison.
Well, fuel only
running
for
Summer
Marcus.
McKnight
Interesting
is fourth, and
strategy.
Dave Marcus is now back to fifth on lap 181.
Chad Little's up to second though on the pit cycle, so
He's got a good car. It seems like, you know, obviously Allison and Bonnet have the pace right now, especially with Senior Marcus. But
the engine has not been running for the cool down.
another Foster's car is out, Mark.
The hood will come up. That's Jimmy
Jimmy
Richards. The Foster's Oldsmobile.
Not related
There's our race leader.
to Timmy
Neil Bonnet
Richards.
going through. But sitting with Bonnet this time as they come down the straight is in fact Herschel McGriff. Now Bonnet was able to put a lap on McGriff about 2 or 3 laps ago, but he hasn't been able to run away from him.
Yes, Phil Homer saying before that Herschel McGriff was having problems with tyres and blistered a tyre. The other fellow that I've got my eye on that's doing a great job chasing this man, Neil Bonnet, in car 75, is Sumner McKnight in the yellow Ford T-Bird, car number 83. He's coming off turn 4.
Not a lot of Ford Thunderbirds in this race either. Now they're talking about it.
Yeah, no, I don't know if
they had a very successful career
Ford was popular with this space. I feel like the Chevys, the Chevy and the GM platforms
in fact,
were
in talking with
so diverse. What was the manufacturer breakdown actually? Because like there's a good amount of Pontiacs and Oldsmobiles in this,
more relaxed
in
with
this
his
field
racing, and he does it a little bit quicker too. Lap 204.
Oh, wait, come on, we got to talk about this pace car. What is this pace car?
Here at Calder Park Thunderdome. Debris on turn number 3. Officials are out
what
quickly
the
to
heck
pick
is that?
up
Is that a Nissan?
what appeared to be some metal.
Or is that the
get it off the racetrack? Cars who
I assume it's probably a Holden Commodore of some kind.
I think it might be a Holden,
but it was a routine stop for.
But it just looks. First off, I think it looks interesting. I wouldn't say dope
the whole ball game open
because
again.
I'm not really liking the rear. But I think that was the only view we had of it. I could always go back and rewind people, but I'm
with
really
Neil Bonnet pretty close behind him.
The lap cars can't decide. They're 3 wide as we get the restart.
Ready to take the green, and cars pick up the pace. They're off and running.
I think that early choice by Bonnet to stay out is really paying off.
Yeah, because he had the extra set of tires now. If you think about it. But now Dave Marcus didn't take tires that last pit stop, so he's got the same amount of tires probably as Neil.
Race leader Bobby Allison as they stretch it, going down the back chute. And breaking up into third is Dave Marcus. They're just clear of Summer McKnight.
And just gotta say, you know, the commitment of these Winston Cup guys to come and do this. It's an exhibition weekend. It's one of their only off weekends during a really long season. Over 30 races. And they're flying 17 hours to Australia to run an exhibition race. Jet-lagged is all hell. And they're going to fly back to run another points-paying race the following week. So we gotta shout out to these guys. Now Neil Bonnet's taking the lead again.
Yeah, because like we mentioned, this was just a random off week. You know, the Winston Cup season just kicked off, and I mean, it really just kicked off because Daytona's over and so is Richmond. So.
Across the start finishing line.
They actually ran another one of these races in December of 1988. It was the Christmas 500, and some other drivers came and ran that one. So it was the end of the year when the season was over. So
probably 2 car lengths back behind him.
Yeah, that's a really good one too. It sometimes does get confused with this race, and I did confuse it for it at one point, but still a great race.
That's Ruben Garcia. He's been running strongly here all day.
Looks like Ruben's got some rear end issues.
Remaining in the race. Somebody just got a black flag on the previous lap. We'll check that with race control.
Look at this. Dave Marcus and Herschel McGriff side by side down into turn number 1. McGriff is trying to get off that lap that Marcus had on him, trying to pull it back and get back in company with the leaders, and they are door handle to door handle.
Is that Ultra Wheels on the side of Herschel McGriff's car?
I think it might be.
Deeper that time gave Dave a few problems.
Ultra Motorsports, man.
That
just creeps up everywhere.
Jim Smith just love racing, man.
And 18's also coming up to join them very, very quickly. Glenn Sturer. So this is a very, very good scrap. Just back behind the leaders.
Black flag for car 30. That's Michael Waltrip.
That is indeed Ultra Wheels. And yes, Michael Waltrip gets the black flag. Unfortunately, he's going to have to come to the pits. It's too slow.
I just love that Ultra Wheels painted on logo just to fit the fender well.
So to speak, that car's looking pretty second-hand as well. Lap 210 of 280, 70 to go.
70 laps to go, Mark.
Approximately 35
71.
minutes of racing if they stay
closing
with a green
in.
flag to the completion.
Marcus has chrome wheels. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I know. I was just going to say that.
Really
sick chrome
shiny.
wheels on the 71 car.
Oh, yeah. Wing tips and chrome wheels.
Glenn Sturer, who has been gaining on these two. Looks like the 81 car is headed into the pits.
David Sosby, that car, in fact, on the other side of it has got pretty severe
Dawsonville
damage.
Pool Room Chevy.
Can't see it from that angle.
David Sosby.
Unbelievable. The front right-hand corner is all
great exposure.
There's Michael Waltrip.
It's internationally known now.
In for some a look at the engine.
How many years did Michael Waltrip drive for Bahari Racing?
Michael Waltrip, of course.
Forever,
who
right?
Came out here
like,
for his first run.
I think since their inception, probably. Think about it.
There's his stats.
1987 NASCAR Rookie of the Year.
No, runner-up. He was second place Rookie of the Year.
87 Rookie
That was.
of the Year for NASCAR.
I demand a recount of those points.
84 voted the most
I actually don't even remember who was
NASCAR.
1987 Rookie of the Year. But I think that the most interesting stat is his dash victory at Daytona.
Appears to have a great future in the sport. Look at this, the scrap for
Or
first
back
and
at
second.
that
It's
point
back
to
on
eat
again. The
Korean
Alabama
Daddy
game.
dash
Neil Bonnet.
cars, I believe that's what they're
Bobby
called.
Allison, 1-2. Dave Marcus back in third.
Grand
Red
something.
Stewart coming back up in the pack again. And these two love a race, don't they?
Yeah. It's been these two guys all day going at it. Which you would assume, right? They started first and second. They're both like the most tenured and most winning Cup drivers in the field. So going after it here.
Yeah, you would honestly. You would be surprised right now if they weren't running in the top 3. And currently, right now, they're pacing the field.
About to lap car number 88.
I wish Alan Grice hadn't had issues, man. It looked like he was going to be like a contender.
Yeah, you know,
as a local favorite.
I don't know what was going on with his brakes, but that's the weirdest thing. Like for him just to keep going without brakes. Wow.
Well, if you can just like roll it through the corner, you know, maybe you don't need brakes. But what about when you come to pit?
That's exactly the point. What if what caution comes out? You
Still
know.
running nose to tail, jumping out of the draft, ducking down on the inside or trying to pass the outside. Coming off turn 2. Bonnet 75 and Bobby Allison in the 12
Bobby Allison's just biding his time
past
here.
Chad Little with the Coors Thunderbird. Diving down low. Watch the
Those white shoes on Neil Bonnet too.
Take race cam. At the moment, though,
I love how this race
here comes Bobby Allison on the outside.
Bonnet is going to use the low line.
Bit of left foot braking again from Neil Bonnet. Just saw a glimpse of it.
Look at Allison though.
This is good racing.
Oh yeah.
Neil Bonnet fighting
I just
Bobby
love
Allison
too.
for the race lead, but I think Allison has got around the outside.
Yep, Allison goes to the lead on the outside. Neil just got loose a little bit underneath him in the corner.
Yeah, you could just see how he had to feather it, and he's just countering it out. But
on that high line. I don't know how he gets the speed out of the car and keeps it on.
still a good amount of race to Marcus. More than 50 laps to go in this one.
Refiner probably only less than a metre off the wall.
Oh, happy New Year to the chat.
Higher than Bobby Allison.
Yes, happy New Year, everyone.
Let's check them out on the
Wherever
gas
time
drive
zone you're in,
scoreboard.
wherever you
Bobby Allison is your
are.
race leader in the Buick,
You're probably
Neil Bonnet
chilling
with
and
Bowling
thrilling.
Pontiac.
I probably won't make it to New Year's. I'll probably do my annual fall sleep on the couch at 10:30 deal.
Bob Howard and the Pennzoil car
I think I'm just going to
coming
play
back
Switch.
into the pits, and the
I tried playing Friday the
reason he is
13th
heading
the
into
game
pits is
yesterday,
what you're about to see on the
and
Goodyear
Kaylin wasn't a
recap.
fan of the controls.
Wham, slam,
No.
straight off
Neither
the
was I.
wall,
Oh, we got
sideways
caution
and
now,
back down
yeah.
Oh,
towards
that
the
is a
field.
hard hit.
Into the grass area, not too much in the way of space between there and the concrete.
Now this
wall,
pace
so Bob
car,
Howard
my man.
has
Look
had a
at this
big hit,
thing.
and that has brought
That's
out
got to
the
be
yellow
like a
flag.
Holden Commodore of some kind.
25
There's
laps
got to be some
completed
article
of
on it.
280.
The lure of racing in a strange and faraway land has a strong pull on some people. This car
This is
was
a
in
really
the ship
interesting
that
story.
sailed from
Oh, I
Los
love this
Angeles,
We'll just let him tell
was
it.
on the water for 3 weeks, and in it was an unwitting stowaway, the engine builder. He was put in the car by its owners. He was provided a sleeping bag, a pillow, as you can see there wasn't much room in there, and certain provisions. He couldn't stand the confinement, and after 3 days he came out of the ship and was arrested by the captain. He was turned over to Australian immigration authorities, deloused, they say, quarantined for 2 days, and then released in the custody of Calder Thunderdome owner Bob Jane. He's here on the grounds now, working off his return fare, doing menial labor. Mitch, this is Mitch Klon, the famous stowaway. Mitch, what was in the car besides the sleeping bag and the pillow?
There was a bag of groceries, which was 2 cans of Spam, can of tuna, 2 boxes of dry cereal, 3 bags of candy, 2 boxes of Twinkies, box of cookies, and that was about it.
For 10,000 miles. You couldn't stand it. It was down in the hold and dark. You finally got out where you could see some fresh air, right?
Yes, sir. It was about 3 days before I went outside, and I just got tired of being down there, so I just went up and decided to get some fresh air.
I mean, at some point, I would want out too, man. Like, you're probably swayed back and forth on the ship. It's pure pitch black in there. You don't know where anything is. That sounds miserable.
You're living off Twinkies and dry cereal and Spam.
And also, that does sound like something that would happen in racing.
And how long is the boat trip?
Well, what does it take to do 10,000 miles?
Yeah, by
across the ocean.
Yeah.
Several. Oh, lap car loose in front of the field.
And now Dave Marcus and Bonnet pokes the nose up on the inside. Who said
Dave
this
Marcus.
race was over?
Lap 228.
Marcus got loose on
the attack. Glenn Sturer wants
got that lap car
50
loose
to go now.
And Neil Bonnet stuck in there behind in second place at the moment. Wasn't that
Here comes
race cam
Bonnet.
the way
Oh, he's
gone,
searching on the outside. Getting on the gas. He thinks better. Backs off. Look at him work that wheel.
Still on the brakes. A little bit of acceleration and then back on the power hard.
Snapping it left, back,
loose
forward.
in the rear end that time, coming out of turn 4, side by side as they go down.
Yeah, he just gets back in the gas way earlier.
He's just got the
yeah,
grip.
Dave Marcus is fighting hard on the outside.
Oh yeah, he's not giving this up without a fight.
I don't think he can because Bonnet will get the drive coming out of turn 2.
Oh, look at Bonnet just almost dooring him as they come down the back straightaway.
They race it out. Side by side up into turn number 3, and Bobby Allison sits in the draft of Neil Bonnet.
Marcus comes down again. Oh, they make contact. Twice.
Car getting a little out of shape. Oh,
3 wide.
As they come off turn 4, and Bobby Allison goes through on the inside and has a crack at the lead. Allison down to turn 1.
Fantastic stuff. They're sprinting now to the checkered flag and the Goodyear 500. Swinging out onto the back
I'm just enjoying this right now. I'm so captivated. They're
fascinating-
gonna go
It's
back
unbelievable
again.
racing, man.
Jeez. They got three racers right now.
Marcus is still working that outside groove.
Oh, listen to him play with that throttle.
As they come off the turn, and Bonnet will now work to the inside on the tri-oval, and he does it and takes Marcus along for the ride. Sturer is back behind them, and Herschel McGriff. You'd think it was
they're
just a
holding
sprint race that started
racing like this. Everyone's catching them. Whoa, jeez.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, he got into him there.
I tried to slide under and just made a little contact. Oh, and to that point about air conditioning in the chat, I mean, they technically don't have that, you know, right side window, so there's a little more air flowing through that car than there is today.
Expect to see
But
Bobby
no
Allison up
actual like AC as you would think of it with
Bonnet.
blowers and whatnot or anything like
Oh
that.
God, no, yeah. But I would imagine it might be a bit better because, you know, you think about it, as time has gone on, they've just gotten better and better with sealing those cars off, you know?
Yeah, they also had like open face helmets back then. The suits they were wearing weren't as crazy, so like, you know what I mean? Some guys didn't wear gloves, so you're definitely like, you're not gonna be as hot as you would be now.
There's some serious cheese back
then. Plenty of fight left with these guys, as you suggested before, Mike. It's like a sprint race.
And here's McGriff now, Herschel McGriff, 60 years of age. He goes down the inside of Dave. Marcus wants to do a bit of racing.
This commentator can't get over the fact that Herschel McGriff is 60 years old.
I mean, he's 60 years old, but he's messing around with them all. I mean, how old is Marcus right now? 45?
I don't know if that says ultra wheels. I think that might be a W.
Turn number 3. And all the time,
Ultra wheels.
Still closing on our race leader, Neil Bonnet, as they come off.
Either way, it's a pretty cool looking car. I like the red, silver. And then you got 2 banana cars behind him. I can't make out a number on either.
But Neil Bonnet and Bobby Allison are gone now.
Oh yeah, they were like, I think we've entertained everybody enough, and they probably started to scoot away. Actually, they're probably trying to scoot away from Marcus because they feel like they have better cars than him, and they want to settle it amongst themselves.
Front straight, there's the gap, you can see it. Neil Bonnet, 75, the Raymond Valvoline Pontiac. Driving beautifully.
Just think about Raymond at this time. You know, you just won the last Winston Cup points paying race. Now you're coming over here to Australia. That's some great music again.
Terry Petrus is fifth. Lap 241, 280. We have a yellow flag.
Full speed out of the pits.
And then right back on the track. Lens.
Doesn't
even
just made his final pit stop.
That should be the final pit stop for fuel.
Stop. Probably got a set of sprinting tyres on there, I'd say, and he's trying to catch the field up quickly.
He didn't take any fuel.
It's a Holden for sure.
On the left-hand side of the car, they put 2 wheels and tyres on the right-hand side of the car, which is the side that's working hard. And they've still got at least one more lap.
No, that might be a Ford.
Ruben Garcia heads
I think
to the
it's
pits,
a
joined
Ford.
by JC
I think it might be a Ford Falcon.
It looks like Robin.
I'm going to double check that.
Google Ford Falcon.
Australians, and Neil Bonnet coming in yet again.
Yeah, Google Ford Falcon 1988.
Because he'll pick the field up again. He's going to have to start.
That is not a Ford Falcon.
Anyway.
No,
no, they're much more elongated.
That's pretty good thinking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
That's one good thing about the yellow flag.
It's a special edition. As you can see, the Raymond car's back and they're taking 4 tires.
Ford Falcon XF Ute.
He will move up behind Bobby Allison, that was a lightning one.
Yeah, 19 seconds, and the rationale there, of course, is that just in
lightning
case the green flag
fast
had come out that
19
lap,
second
he was in
pit
a fighting
stop, James.
position.
Yeah, that was fast back in the day.
For a full set of
I believe this was
Lightning
back in the time
fast.
period when you could have 3 tire changers too. So you got 3 air guns over the wall.
Not only in terms of the elbow-to-elbow racing, but also the tactics of the game. And these guys are pretty experienced at it.
They certainly are, ducking in and out of the pits. We expect the pace car maybe to come off. We're on lap 242 of 280. The inaugural Goodyear 500 from Bob Jane's Calder Park Thunderdome. Hope you're enjoying our telecast across Australia on the Australian Television Network, another 7 Sport exclusive.
And also greetings extended
flag, to the ESPN Total
graphic.
Sports Network of the United States.
That's a yellow one. I like the green one.
We're down to 14 cars now out of 32
I like the Holden
starters.
Motorsports logo in the background there.
And they've been given a signal for one more lap under.
So, yeah,
so it might be a
Holden is or was over now. GM's brand in Australia, like only to Australia. So it's like Chevy, but in Australia. It's called Holden. And yeah, so it's a really cool car brand. Honestly, they have some really awesome looking cars, Commodores.
And then on the outside of row 3, running third.
They had the Balloon Ute, which was the dopest looking truck ever made.
And the Holden Colorado.
Colorado, which is basically the Chevy Colorado, which is repainted. I think if I could find a way to take off all that stupid badging off of a Chevrolet vehicle and brand it Holden, I would.
100%. There we go. Green flag.
Green flag. There's my graphic. No one's gone yet. There we go. Now we're getting back. Bobby Allison.
Thunderdome, let's turn them loose. Bobby Allison.
And you have Dave Marcus in second. Bonnet is in third, but he's got fresh rubber on all 4 corners of his number 75, Ray Mock Pontiac. I stop saying that, Mark. Why can't team names be as dope as they were back in the day? Bahari Racing, MB2 Motorsports, Sabco Racing, Bobby Allison Enterprises. What happened to names?
Rudd Performance Motorsports. RPM.
Yeah, and that had the greatest acronym ever, RPM.
You can go check out our podcast from way back when, before we did video versions, where we actually talked about NASCAR's worst team names.
I think we should probably revisit that, because I feel like it evolves, and there's also things that people bring up that we might have overlooked, so we're probably gonna have to revisit that at some point.
That time. He's closing now on
I mean, come on, the money team? Would it be Spire to be the money team?
Trackhouse isn't very good either.
I want to know more about exactly what that is. Is that like a slang term? Like Trackhouse? Like, I gotta know that, Justin.
Herschel McGriff now. Dave Marcus side by side, and McGriff goes back on the inside. That has been a fascinating dice, but the one up in front is even better. As
this is like average age of the top 5's got to be like 45
will take the lead back in the sprint to the flag. Bonnet still in front. Allison now in the second spot.
Now Bonnet out front again.
You know, these guys have been in the
It has just been a dogfight between those two all day long, but I definitely think Bonnet's got the better car. Though Bobby Allison has the best looking car. Sorry, Neil.
Coming off turn 4, the Valvoline Raymond Pontiac. Neil Bonnet.
Woo, that lap car.
Of the race, winner of the Richmond 400 only last weekend. Bobby Allison sits in second.
I believe when he won the Richmond 400, that was still technically at the old Richmond Fairgrounds. If I'm not
Turn 2
mistaken,
now onto the back straight, not too much between them. Still probably a couple of car
Yeah,
lengths.
stick.
Herschel McGriff has broken clear of Dave Marcus. He'd like to pull a lap back if he possibly could. Tony Petrus, or Terry Petrus, is also in there. He's driven a fine race here.
247 laps down, 33 laps to go.
Racing reference.
Oh, you just click the track.
Down through the tri-oval into turn number 1.
True.
No doubt we still have a race on our hands in the sprint to the flag. Coming off 2, and Allison again has been working that high groove, the top side of the race course. We'll pick up the Castrol scoreboard. Neil Bonnet is the race leader for Valvoline. Bobby Allison second. Dave Marcus is third. Summer McKnight is in 4th place, and Glenn Stirrer.
Exhibition / unclassified. There we go.
The American influence upon today's Goodyear 500 is unmistakable.
It's back.
From the time you turn off the Calder Highway into Thunderdome, there are constant reminders. This is a red, white and blue day. Even Old Glory shares equal exposure with our national flag.
Born in the USA.
The Adelaide Grand Prix, this is not, nor does it pretend to be. This, my friends, is plain homespun Americana. As simple as apple pie and ice cream, or Ronnie Reagan in a deficit.
All the different categories that I've seen. I think the general attitude and atmosphere of NASCAR is the most open. I think there's a very, very well developed and sincere attempt by everybody involved with NASCAR to further their own sport.
Gassing up the V8 Giants for today's 280-lap Goodyear 500 has been a task in itself.
Herschel McGriff is sponsored by Wholesale
suppliers to
Truck
the Winston
Parts.
Cup Series.
This looks like the Ultra
Familiar
logo.
Unical 76 signs adorn the circuit, and there's even a gas station in the pits carrying their name. Unical shipped 20,000 gallons of racing gas to Australia from Virginia, and the corporation is obviously pleased to see the sport going international.
We're enjoying our involvement over here. Lovely country. And we're very pleased to bring over our products.
We're very pleased to bring over our products.
Stickers, and anything to do with the NASCAR movement. Trackside spectators have also been entertained by Charlotte Motor Speedway announcer Bill Kennelly, who's here to help local mic men call the shots. NASCAR's arrival in Australia has been eagerly awaited by oval track devotees, and there seems little doubt Chapter 1 has been a rip-roaring success, even before the checkered flag falls here later this afternoon.
Rip-roaring success.
A yellow flag caution period. Bobby Allison has gone to the pits at the same time.
They're changing tyres on the right-hand side. That's the working side.
Let's have a look at what
Excuse me.
the
That's a
reason
cool little
was.
ute.
Aha, Michael Waltrip in car number 30, heading on down the back straight.
Oh, Michael hit the
there goes the rear
ejecto
bumper.
button on
That's
his
the reason
bumper.
The yellow flag has come out.
Lost the whole bumper.
It landed up against the wall, and Bobby Allison, race leader for quite a part of this event.
He's been in so far for 25 seconds. Petrus
No, he's just chilling.
has just left the pit area. That's Allison at the wheel. Car
All these
21,
cars with red
Kyle
chassis.
Petty has got a whole bunch of steam coming out of his car at the moment. They're now working
I
the
can see why
left-hand
people
side
want
of
like
Bobby
the cars
Allison's
to have
car.
like
Meanwhile, the field is
they
coming
want
out
the
of
teams to
three,
paint the
and
chassis.
Allison
They're
departs,
very
41 seconds spent in the pits.
I don't
But
know,
he'll be
they
able
just
to team
pop
up on the end of
more.
this field.
You can
There's the
notice
yellow
it. It's better than
flag.
white.
Certainly been showing that rascal today. Quite a number of caution periods. The most serious one, obviously, for the big wreck that we had involving Alan Grice.
One more lap under caution. Chad Little to the pits, car number 19.
I think we're probably going to
Good
have.
break for Bobby Allison. He gets,
We're under.
plenty of time
Are we
to
under
make it back
25
up on
laps
the
here,
end of
Mark?
the field, because as the leaders come down the main straight, he's just heading down towards turn one.
Yeah, I believe so. I think
256,
this is going to be the final
280.
restart. Also, Jim, there's only 3 Fords in this
Petty
race.
was losing a lot of steam from the car in the pits only a
And
few
only
moments
2
ago.
Pontiacs.
Allison, meanwhile,
How many
was
Oldsmobile?
just tagged onto the back of the bunch.
Hasn't
been a good day for Kyle Petty.
6,
27-year-old
7.
Kyle Petty of
Mostly
High Point, North
Chevys.
Carolina is a third-generation NASCAR racer
2
who
Buicks.
promises to follow in the
3
footsteps of his grandpa Lee and his daddy Richard. Now into his 10th season of competition, Kyle won the very first race he entered, the
27-year-old
ARCA
Kyle
200 at Daytona. But it wasn't until '85 when he joined the Wood Brothers team that consistency and success came hand in hand. Season 87 produced 2 super speedway victories. None more satisfying, though, than the World 600 at Charlotte, North Carolina, when he steered the Citgo Thunderbird to the checkered flag for an $89,000 payoff. Career earnings have already topped the $2 million mark for Kyle, still somewhat
big
shy of
pimpin'.
his father's $6.6 million total. Then again, Daddy has taken 29 years to amass his nest egg. The Racing Petties are NASCAR folk heroes with a huge spectator following. And young Kyle would give anything to be the first family member to win on foreign soil here today.
Kyle Petty needs to
interested-
have a cigarette.
Neil Bonnet.
I'm interested to know why Kyle's driving a Chevy in this race.
Herschel McGriff once again gets
It's very
the
interesting because
rundown
at
on
this
the
time, isn't
inside
he
of
driving
the
for the
lap
Wood
car.
Brothers too in
Hasn't
the
he
Cup
been
Series?
strong performer
And it's a
today?
Ford.
They've always been
Could have-
Ford.
Yeah.
Could outlast the
Oh,
lot of
also,
ones
that
at
was
the
the
moment.
Richmond
Car number
Fairgrounds that
98,
Neil
Herschel
Bonnet won
McGriff,
at.
60 years of age. What did I say? He started in 1945.
Oh, yes,
He
that's
gets
what
a
I was
new
looking at. I
car.
totally
He'll be a
forgot.
dynamo
That's
when he
okay, I
reaches
double
70.
checked it. Look at this car now.
So the man who sits
Wholesale Truck
on
Parts,
the inside
USA.
down the lap, Herschel McGriff, 60 years of age. Neil Bonnet, of course, who has reached the 40 mark, and sitting back behind him in 3rd place is, of course, Bobby Allison, who is 50 years of age in the pace car, about to come to the pit area
And Allison doesn't have to tag onto the end of the field. He, in fact, goes up on the high line, goes into his third position, if you're wondering what that's all about, as we approach the restart.
Ready now for the final run. We have had 25 lead changes as of lap 255. We're ready to go racing. And the final sprint for the Goodyear 500.
Good start for the leaders here, kind of closely. Oh, contested, but
pack down into turn number 1.
Marcus could not clear that lap car of McGriff.
They swing out of there. And back behind Marcus is Bobby Allison, who really needs to get on with this if he's going to haul in Neil Bonnet. They work the back straight. McGriff on the inside.
Chrome wheels versus chrome wheels.
Running strongly up there in second spot, the number 71 car. Privateer, Winston Cup Racing, doing a
Arian in the chat, the race is almost over. There's only about 10 laps left at this point.
Allison is just sprinting down the inside this time.
Oh, they're dooring each other.
Offenders, but he'll force
Bobby wants some more room, and he's not getting it.
Turn number 2. Yes, he does just that. He catches Marcus out wide as they work the back straight.
He's coming though. He's got to have his team on the inside.
Going after Neil Bonnet.
He's going after him.
Marcus, they go up into turn number 3.
There he goes. He's up to second, but does he have anything for Neil Bonnet?
Oh, man. Like you said, Neil Bonnet's got the best car, and he's got a good like 2.5, 2 second lead right now.
I think the biggest thing is the fact the whole Raymock Enterprises team is here. I mean, yeah, it's probably Bobby's team right there with that 12 car, but that's not his normal, you know, Delta or Buick, you know, he's running.
Look at Herschel McGriff. He knows how much money's at stake. He wants to be a part of this first ever Australian NASCAR stock car race at the right end of the field. Battling at the moment.
This race pays $68,500 if you win.
How much did it take to get here, though? That's the question.
Right?
Yeah,
what's your overhead? And as the announcers say, that's real money, American money, not Australian money, not fake money.
Real money. Also, that is a Holden Commodore HSVSS Group A.
Wow.
That's the pace car.
Coming in clutch.
It is a smaller looking car. I will pull up a photo after the race. That is
$42,000 if he can pick a winner.
But not as cool looking as this Pontiac. Man. I don't even know what generation or what specific model it is that has that Aero Coupe design on it.
Yeah, thanks Lipe for that information in the chat. Who said it's a Holden Commodore Group A.
Oh, you actually it popped up in the chat. Okay, nice. Thanks. Thanks to the chat. I just found that out. Thank you to the chat as well.
In fact, Marcus has dropped off the pace appreciably in the last couple of laps.
Because I was searching, I was like, that definitely seems like a
done everything right in Australia.
The body kit on it looks like a Ford. It's a very interesting body kit. It's probably the exact car that they ran in the supercar back at that point.
Turn number 4 now comes up. As they come out of there, down through the tri-oval.
And Bobby's catching him though.
Oh yeah.
There's only 2 laps to go. There's not enough time.
Well, that's the thing. It's like during the long run, I feel like Neil would fade, and then Bobby would kind of be able to keep pace with him.
Yellow flag will come out.
Uh-oh.
If he can clear the circuit, it may not in fact come out.
No, I think he's okay. He's
looks
like
back
out onto the racetrack, and I don't think
that car is off the track, but it was a slow car on the track.
He got out of the way. It would be a shame if this ended under caution.
Yeah, because there would be no green, white checker. Only in ARCA.
To the last lap, and we have Bobby Allison.
White flag.
On race leader Neil Bonnet as they head off the tri-oval.
1 lap to go.
Half a second, 0.56 separating.
That probably took somebody
the 5
years to make
last time.
They've got cars to.
It took someone with a computer engineering degree.
A computer the size of this room.
Neil Bonnet driving for the
It was in a cabinet that was like as big as my desk. The team on the wall, ready to celebrate.
Turn 4.
The checkered flag is at the ready, and Neil Bonnet in the Valvoline Pontiac strikes.
Neil Bonnet takes the win in the Goodyear 500.
And third place is
What
Dave Marcus in the number 71 car. What a
for Neil
race,
Bonnet.
what a drive.
Yeah, you know what? That's 2 weeks in a row. And spoiler alert, Bonnet would go on to win the very next Winston Cup race. So his team, 3 in a row at that point in 1988. Pretty successful run and a lot of good momentum. Let's hear from Neil post-race interview with Hatman.
Hey, congratulations, Neil. You're really on a roll. One at Richmond and now here in Australia. What kind of a day was it for you?
Well, it wasn't as easy as it looked like. Bobby got awful good when the race started. He's an expert at setting a chassis in hot weather, and Bobby had his car in good shape, but my guy just kept coming back every time we'd pit and work on the car. You know, first thing I want to do is thank these Australian people for being so nice to us over here. We've had a good time.
What about that big crash up there? Were you close?
No, but they called me on the radio and said it's a bad wreck. How's Alan Grice and those guys? Everybody okay?
He's got a broken collarbone. Other than that, he's okay.
Well, I hate to hear that for Alan, but I'm glad everybody's not hurt any worse than that.
Okay, congratulations, Neil. But let me get a word here with Bobby.
Batman grabbing Chris Economaki.
Yeah, Chris, it you know, it was a hard run there at the end. You know, we were just trying our best to catch up with Neil, and he had a little too much stuff for us there at the end.
What about the track? Did it get better as the race wore on?
Yeah, the track was good. It's bumpy, and the rise going in the corner gave the guys a lot of trouble. But it's a nice track, and Bob Jane deserves a lot of credit for putting this thing together down here.
How about that big crash, Bobby? Were you near that?
No, fortunately, I was ahead of it, so I didn't see anything of what happened.
Okay, congratulations and good luck to you. Let's get a hold of Dave Marcus over here. Dave?
Top 3 now, nice.
What are you frowning about?
It's a tough race, Chris. Neil and Bobby were real good. You know, their cars were working good, and I had to drive really hard all day just to try and keep up to them. But I enjoyed it. It's a nice facility, and it's a great honor to come over here in Australia and be in the first NASCAR event. So I had a great time.
What'd you have for breakfast, Dave? I saw you pull alongside of Bobby Allison there. You went wild there about 50 laps ago. What happened?
Well, Chris, you know, we're running up front, and that's what racing's all about. And I know these Australian people want to see a good race, so we try and give them a good show.
Well, you certainly did that. Congratulations, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, that's
what did you eat for breakfast today, Dave? Because you were up there racing with Bobby Allison.
Here, I want to say to my good friends down in this part of the country.
So just answer a couple questions in the chat. Arian said, yeah, what if open wheel cars race this oval? Well, that would be pretty baller. I assume
that would be Charlotte fast. In 96, 97. I would assume, you know, remember when the Indy cars went over there when they were the Indy Racing League?
Yeah, or it'll be like what Champ Car at Texas, where they canceled the race after 2 practice sessions.
No, I think
so. Like, yeah,
there would be too many bumps. This place is insanely bumpy. And then also, of the follow up question, was this race taped? Yeah, it was. It's like tape broadcast, and then they edit it down. But I think that what really makes it better is that, like we said earlier, the heavy editing in here, because you get a good broadcast with it and had a good race. But that was the race, and our screen share right now for everyone.
Go back to gallery so you can see our beautiful faces.
Our beautiful faces. We'll try to. I'll pull up a photo of that car too, because that Holden is just sweet.
Yeah, but that's like this race. Like I don't know if it would have aired live in Australia or not. I'm not sure, but that was like a package edited down for sure. You can see the harsh cuts and everything. Like that was edited into just the best parts of the race for an hour and 15 minutes. And we're considering for our like podcast going forward for race reviews, kind of doing that, maybe cutting the races down to an hour and then just watching that hour and cutting out some of the more like less interesting pieces and just kind of hitting the highlights. So
yeah, and we also, it's always a fine line because like of, you know, copyright use. We're not trying to take this race and claim it as ours, but
no,
you know,
not at all.
We would like to be able to, like, you know, give the context to what we're talking about by actually airing it, which would be nice. And that's what we're doing is we're mainly we're an education front here, people. All right, we're just trying to teach you guys what we learned, because we're learning a lot all the time.
Yeah, like our like to speaking to that, like our channel's not monetized. We have 1,000 subscribers now, so we can monetize, but we don't plan on monetizing our channel. This is all just educational. It's just something fun for us to do. You know, we've both got full-time jobs that we make our money at, and it's just something we like to do for fun, to be nerds. So
yeah, it's just, you know, it keeps us more in touch with this the fun passion of doing it. Let me see if I can get this desktop shown. And it keeps us passionate about it. So the Holden VN Group ASS, this thing, man, look at this. It's a beautiful looking car right here.
Yeah, it honestly is. So the thing that I'm very happy about is that late 80s cars are back in style now.
I have a neighbor. Well, I don't know. I could go talk to my girlfriend really quick, and she would just tell me that they all look ugly and disgusting.
No, she's wrong. First off, I have a neighbor 2 streets over who has a fully restored like 87 Supra, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like I want to ask him, can I take photos of your car? Like, you know, because it's unbelievable. So
and what's funny is like
cars.
That car is probably like more intriguing and just it's more interesting to people than a brand new Supra right off the showroom floor. And there's just something about it, like the way it's designed, the period piece that it has. I mean, what's cool about this car right here in this print ad, It's $50,000
Yeah,
brand new back in the day.
Yeah, that's crazy with inflation, like what it would be now.
It's probably a $75,000 car, maybe a little more.
Yeah, well, what's a super cost, right? The same kind of car from that era. They're about 80 grand, 85 grand. So
yeah, and think about cars from that era that are kept pristine. I guess like the biggest bubble that I've always remembered is like the BMW, 3 Series, especially anything E30 related. That body style is so sought after, but if you can get something that's pristine and kept period perfect and maintained, it's worth a lot of money. So it's crazy how like the economy of specifically cars has just gotten very big. As you can see, I think we backed out. You can see some more photos of it. This is kind of the one that was in the race right here.
Yeah, it's an awesome. I love all the Holdens, really man. Cool. They're such cool cars.
Oh yeah, I mean, look at that. Oh, see, look to me. I thought it was the Ford Falcon because at first I was like, "Oh, the 4 doors," but that's what threw me off.
It looks like the Mercedes of that era. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
those really boxy Mercedes. Like, yeah.
What's really interesting is like the side jack stands right here. Like it's such a proper race. It's like the race car influence from this edition. It's probably like one of the FIA mandates they had that, you had to produce the car. And I guess this was
it was probably your homologation rules, right?
Yep.
So,
but man, just the way that, I don't know, like it's so interesting to see the ridges on it. Cause like those are points where the engineers are like, oh, the air's got to move over the car this way. But yeah, I mean, that thing is so cool. Let me see if we can. Oh yeah. Someone actually had a nice time photographing this car.
So getting back to wrapping up this race, it was 280 laps. Only 3 cars finished on the lead lap. That would have been your winner, Neil Bonnet, and Bobby Allison, Dave Marcus. Everybody else was at least 2 laps down, and only 15 cars finished the race.
That's
32.
That's a shame. But it also speaks to the attrition too of this style of racing. And I mean, they went all out with this one. This was like a full blown, like you said, 500-kilometer NASCAR race. And 500 kilometers is still quite a long way in a stock car race. So definitely brought out the attrition. You saw which teams were kind of prepared for it and which teams kind of weren't. Obviously, Dave Marcus, Bobby Allison, and Neil Bonnet definitely were the 3 best teams and competitors at this race. Yeah, I don't know if you could easily agree with that one or not.
Yeah, 100%. I think overall, like this race was really enjoyable. I liked that even early on, like the Australian drivers like Alan Grice and that did really well. They were racing up in the top 5. Like Grice started 3rd. He outqualified guys like Dave Marcus and Herschel McGriff and Chad Little and Kyle Petty, really, did better than all those guys. But unfortunately, just didn't work out for him. He had the brake problem and got involved in that accident. So Kyle Petty was actually rounded out the top 10. We'll run down the top 10. So it was Neil Bonnet, Bobby Allison, Dave Marcus, Glenn Sturr in 4th, Sumner McKnight in 5th, Herschel McGriff came home 6th, then Terry Petrus, Chad Little in 8th, JC Danielson, and then, as we said before, Kyle Petty rounding out the top 10. Your first Australian driver was Robin Best, who had qualified 4th. He finished in 11th place, 13 laps down.
Yeah, but your boy, Jeremy Churchill from Canada and the Foster's Churchill Trans Chevrolet, he came home 13th, man. Not a bad run for him.
Yes, Aaron mentioned the Pontiac G8. That is also a very interesting car, Pontiac G8.
Oh, yeah, another Holden car, too. I mean, that was based off of a chassis from them and never really got to see too much of a light of day. Honestly, the one name that really pops out on this list that probably doesn't get enough credit for doing it was Chad Little, man. Everyone's going to forget about Chad Little, and Chad Little was in that race. But, kind of Dave Marcus's point, it's just an honor to have been a part of this race. So I'm pretty sure that's what a lot of these drivers feel is honor to be a part of what was the first international NASCAR race outside of outside of North America. So it's pretty big. Obviously, what would follow would be, trips to Japan, several years down the line in the 90s. But man, NASCAR has not really gone international since then, though. I feel like with the inception of the Euro Series, I feel like this race and the series that was being formed from this. I forgot specifically what it was called. It wasn't CASCAR. That's why I don't know why that pops in my head first. But the sanctioning body that was covering this, they did go forward too and develop a racing series, a stock car racing series in Japan, in Australia. And I think what that showed was that there was a demand for stock car racing, and this race did help it. I mean, this was kind of at the height probably for them of like what stock car racing could be, but it's cool to see that it led to something, and it kind of laid the groundwork for what we see internationally. You know, it's that first dip in the water, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you see the inception of, like you said, the Euro Series, which if you've never watched is really awesome. It's mostly road courses, but it's very, very good racing. Also the Pinty Series, which is, CASCAR was its own thing in Canada, fiberglass body cars. And then NASCAR bought it out. It was NASCAR Canadian Tire Series. Now it's NASCAR Pinty Series. And then you got the NASCAR Corona Mexico Series. I don't know if it's still the Corona Series. Is it the Peak?
No.
Peak Antifreeze?
Yeah, it's the Peak Antifreeze Mexico Series.
Yeah, and then there's also Stock Car Brazil. If you've ever seen Stock Car Brazil, they're a little bit more similar to like a V8 sport supercar, like a touring car. But
yeah, I'd say more touring car because of the sprint style races they have, and also the style of car it is. But it's cool to see, like specifically with the Pinty Series and the Euro Series car, they're their own kind of chassis. They're not really the same stock car chassis we see in the Cup Series, Xfinity Series, or in the Truck Series. So I like that there's a different platform out there, though it would be nicer if things could be more universal so that you could see the ability of European teams coming to North America or North American teams going over to Europe. I think that would really be cool, but we're very far away from that at this point.
Yeah, chat's letting us know that there was a big stock car race in 1990 at the Queensland Street Race in Australia. So you have to Google that, check that out.
Yeah. And they also like the SS and the G8. Poor G8. I missed that.
In the end, James, we have to rate the race. That's what we do. We rate the race. So what did you think of this race, and what would you give it out of 10 and why?
I'm going to give it a 9 because, one, it's really cool because it's like a fun fact of history that you can just be like, oh, you know that this race existed? Because it's really fun. It's really an interesting broadcast. I love the music. And, you love the pieces that are put into it. The camera work's amazing. And I mean, it's of its time. So why can't you love it?
It's true. Yeah. Chat's saying, there was an Australian stock car racing league last 2001. It was called Oscar, a US car.
And I think they did street courses too, which was cool. I mean, I've never really been able to find a bunch of races I know there's a couple, so you guys check them out on YouTube. They're pretty interesting. But yeah, Oscar, man, those were some days.
Yeah, so I think for me, like, I'm gonna be right there with you. I think a 9 out of 10 is pretty solid. Like, it is an exhibition race, so it doesn't count for anything. It's just for fun. But to have guys go over there like Neil Bonnet, Dave Marcus, Bobby Allison, run the top 5 all day. You had Australian drivers doing a one-off, running the top 5. Alan Grice had a great run before he had issues. Dick Johnson being in this race is just awesome. Because I remember when you said this, I'm like, oh, I bet you Dick Johnson's in this race. And then we watched it, I'm like, yeah, there's Dickie. Of course he's in this race. It's a race to entertain the people in Australia. And like you said, camera angles. We got race cam in NASCAR out of this race, right? Like, it was revolutionary. So got to hand it to 7 Network in Australia for coming up with race cam. And it's still being used today. Like I said earlier, Supercars broadcasts are the best motorsports broadcasts you ever watch in your life. They're unbelievable. Most knowledgeable people, really cool stuff down in the pits and really cool camera angles. So check those out, man. Like, Supercars is fast becoming my favorite racing series in the world. It's so much fun to watch. So I'm going to be giving it a 9 as well, man. It was an awesome race. It was a lot of fun. Not like crazy 3-wide battling or anything like that, but good, hard racing. So it definitely gets a 9 out of 10.
Yeah. And I think that's what's good is like Bonnet, Allison, and Marcus all put on a great show. They were definitely the class of the field. Yeah, you could say, oh, there's only 3 competitive cars. Yeah, but those 3 cars duked it out for at least 150 laps under green. It was pretty entertaining to watch, beating and banging. You had to love it. And then also too, like, the cars themselves look so amazing. And it's nice that we have like iRacing with the 87 cars now, because we can like, play around with these designs. But man, just to look at these cars, when I first watched this race like a year ago, before any of that stuff like came out, I was like, man, these are so cool. And you never knew they existed. And they're like, to your point earlier, way earlier, like they're so random, like numbers like 84, 75, 25, things you wouldn't normally see that are out there. And the colors, gosh, those colors popped. And some interesting sponsors too. I mean, shout out to the Dawsonville pool room for getting on that car earlier. That was pretty dope.
In a race that there was no Elliott in,
yeah. Was that a Georgia driver?
I'm not sure, man. But let us know if you're watching right now, all 9 of you. Let us know in the chat or even in the comments just what your rating of this race was. Arian says he gives it a 7.5. To each their own, man. I think just that the fact that this race exists is so cool. It's a cool part of history.
At least he gave it a passing grade.
True. And yes, they did build the Holden cars in Australia, I believe. I don't think they built them in the US and shipped them.
Oh yeah, no, that was a totally Australian company.
Yeah.
That's right. We're not like America where we just send our cars to Canada or Mexico to be made.
Hey, we build our own cars here, bud. We got Toyota plants here. We got Honda plants. We got Ford plants. We build our own cars, bud.
I mean, we built some. I mean, they're technically not Canadian cars, though.
Not technically, no, but they're built by Canadians. Come on.
Well, I mean, yeah, they do that in America, but like, unfortunately, it's like Hyundai and Mercedes and Kia, and it's interesting because like down south, yeah, down south you got the Japanese cars in Georgia, and then over in Alabama you got all the luxury brands.
Yeah,
it's weird.
But yeah, so we were going to mention, so like we talked about Holden, we talked about that. Actually in supercars now, so Holden actually is retired as a brand, as a GM brand. So they're not making them anymore after this year. So next year, if you're going to watch V8 supercars, you'll see Ford Mustangs and Falcons, Holden Commodores with no logos on them because they're not ready for the new car. But in 2022, they're going to the Chevy Camaro. So just like NASCAR, they're going to have the Camaro and the Mustang in their top series. And James and I were talking about this a few weeks ago, and I was like, that's kind of really cool. Like the Camaro looks sick, but that Australian series is really losing some of its Australian flair because it seems like it's another American racing series.
I think
which a lot of people thought would happen when Roger Penske became involved.
Yeah. I mean, it's not Roger that's doing it. It's, I think the biggest thing people need to understand is the perception of cars has changed. People don't look at cars the way we used to in the 80s. It's that thought was there for sure of like, cars just being utilitarian. It's just a mode of transportation and nothing more to it. But that's how people look at it nowadays. And, you can't build a dope V8 car and market it to the masses, though Dodge has done an amazing job with it. Not everybody wants that. People want fuel efficient cars that are economical and affordable.
Definitely. And I think that's why at this time, the cars made sense. You had the Buick LeSabre, you had the Oldsmobile, you had the Chevy Monte Carlo. These were affordable cars that everybody could drive, and it was win on Sunday, sell on Monday. Now it's a little bit tougher. Like we were making a video about explaining how the Rolex 24 works, and it's coming out soon. I make a joke in it about how, they're based on road going cars. If you're a rich person, because they're like Porsches and Lexus and Lamborghinis, and it's like they're not cars that the normal person drives, but they're exotic, right? And that's kind of the allure of it, is you get to see cars that you can't buy. But I feel like in the American market, when it comes to stock car racing, you want cars that like you can buy, and you want to see cars that an average person would own racing.
Yeah, I think the attainability is what made win on Sunday, sell on Monday so principle with NASCAR, because it's like, hey, this car was raced on Sunday, it's projected on Monday, and you sell it on the showroom floor. And then, we've gone away from that so much. To our sports cars, it hasn't. It's more or less what brands are involved, and those brands that are involved hold racing true to their mission, to their whole objective. So they're obviously going to continue in motorsports, where a brand like Kia normally doesn't have that in their mission statement. So they're not for it, and it's fine. But like when you have a lot of people just driving, basic brand cars like that because their marketing and advertising is more creative and can get to more people than brands who are mainly spending their time and efforts in racing, it's hard to compete. And then also too, you think about it, it's like people look at the car and they're not stupid. They're like, why do I need a race car? I know what I need. People are not as naive as they once were perceived to marketers. And I don't get why people don't give customers more respect in the decision-making process and just marketing to them. Because, you look at the offerings, especially as things go towards autonomous and electric cars, it's pretty far out, but eventually, electric cars are going to be the standard for a lot of people. And there's going to be a lot of electric racing to help appeal to those people who own electric cars who like racing, and also to possibly find out new information and development for electric vehicles. But man, that crash during the race was crazy. Yeah, some ARCA brakes right there, my man. That was crazy. I just got reminded from the chat. Oh man.
His brakes were broken. It wasn't his fault. But yeah.
I mean, but I don't know. I'm just thinking like, man, why didn't you just try to fix it? But then again, he wanted to win that race. He was probably going to try to go up there and contend with Bobby and Neil Bonnet. But I feel like Neil Bonnet still had the fastest car.
Christian, why is GTD better than everything up to and including eating, sleeping, and breathing?
I think what it is like you got GTLM cars with great driver matchups in them. You got some AMs, you got some pro drivers, and I think the car is just cooler. Though it is like a GTLM car, basically, just in a different category. But like it's disappointing to see that like Acura doesn't have the NSX racing in WEC, or like Lexus has that car elsewhere. It's just stuck in GTD.
Yeah, so Lexus actually ended their European program. So America is the only place you're going to see the RCF GT3 racing right now, unfortunately. But yeah, GTD is cool because like you get that Pro-Am driver lineup, and they have anti-lock brakes and traction control. So the GT3 format around the world is my favorite form of motorsport. Like if you watch the Intercontinental GT Championship, you've got a car with anti-lock brakes, traction control, and all these driver aids driven by like 3 superhuman like platinum drivers. And it's just some of the best racing you'll ever see. So in IMSA, I love GTD. It's definitely the class I pay the most attention to when I watch IMSA. I absolutely love it. It's just so cool. You can relate to the cars. They look like road cars. And the Pro-Am formula brings such cool strategy. So if you like strategy in racing, you really got to pay attention to GTD.
And also too, what the cars have to offer, because, definitely the Lexus and the NSX are 2 totally different cars within that category. Those are just like 2 that we're specifically naming. I think GTLM gets GT lame because of the fact there's not a lot of great competition in certain divisions, man. I feel like
it's going for cars. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it's a long endurance race, man, there are some pretty great battles. Cause like, if you're looking at the strategy and the overall like race, there's a lot to dive into there, but in the sprint format, I feel like they're just so raw and gritty, but like the problem is like you they're not as durable as GTD. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm with you there.
GT cars, you can bang each other and be fine.
Yeah, it's a fun class. Like, don't get me wrong. The GTE format is a fun class, but it's going away. It's too expensive. And this will be the last year for GTLM and IMSA. Mark my words. We won't see it again. It's going to go away. They're going to move to a GTD Pro, GTD AM formula, I think, going forward, because the world is going GT3. That's just the way the world's going. And the GTE format is going to go away. If you have no idea what we're talking about, I'm sorry. Sports car racing is really confusing, but we have videos we're going to make eventually to explain all these things. So yeah, Arian says in the chat, like, wish IMSA would just stick with 2 or 3 classes. Yeah, like I'm kind of with you there. It can get confusing, especially now that there's 5 with LMP3 being added. So if you remember, like he said, in the ALMS, in the late days of the ALMS, when they had like 6 classes, it got kind of confusing. But I don't mind the 4. The 4 is fine to me,
4 is a good number. I think 4 is a good competitive number. I mean, I remember when it was 2 and it was bad. That was like low car turnouts. It seemed like sports car racing was really losing its luster in North America. That was a bad period during Grand Am. No offense to Grand Am. Jim France did an amazing job to right that ship and keep building it up to where it became to IMSA today, especially with, the LMS folding. But, I think what they have now with 5 is a little confusing. I'm more of a fan of just seeing GT cars out on track. I'm not a huge prototype fan. It's not a category that ever really piques my interest. No offense to prototype. I think it's interesting, but
prototypes
I'm a
are cool.
GT guy.
Like I don't mind prototypes. Like they're cool, but I think like Arian says again, like make GTD the only GT class. That's what you're gonna see. You're gonna see going forward that you're just gonna have GTD, but there's gonna be 2 classes of GTD. One will be all pro and one will be pro am. That's what we think will end up happening.
I agree with that. And it's just because GTLM is just too expensive to produce. I mean, you see why Porsche's pulled out.
Yeah, especially with Michael Fassbender like binning one every week. They're just too expensive.
I mean, it's too expensive, and to that whole point of the evolution of the car, where is it going? Obviously, a brand like Porsche's already got enough invested into like electric car technology, especially with their Formula E success.
Yeah,
So
but everybody's pulling out of Formula E now. Like
that's the thing. It's because, I mean, you've learned a lot there. Yeah. What else is going to do?
That's the thing, right?
And now you have like E touring car racing popping up more and more. Like that's going to be the big thing. Like TCR is out. It's like ETCR,
Yeah. And I'm interested to see what happens with Extreme E with the off-road thing,
Yeah, because how many teams are doing that this year with the Dakar? Isn't there like an E-car going to Dakar?
I'll have to look that up. Not going to quote you on that. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, Arian, you're right. I think you make a good point. Grand Am had it right with 2 classes, having DP and GT. But really, those GT cars were all like very different, man. They had like 997 Cup cars and like Mustangs, and there was a Pontiac Solstice at one time. I can't imagine. I wouldn't want to have to be the guy who.
Yeah, also had the Pontiac G6 out there too. I remember those.
The car was so ugly. Like,
forget you. I loved the Stevenson car. Shout out to Stevenson. Such a great team.
But anyway,
that's a team of their time.
It was cool, they did a good job with that series. I love Grand Am. I look back fondly on Grand Am. I have my Grand Am prototype diecast.
Grand Am was cool. I liked it better when they had the stock car class though. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, there was a stock car class where you could take a Winston Cup car, put lights on it, and go run the Daytona road course at night. Now that was kind of cool. I wish they could bring that back, and you just have, I think the 2 split GTD class thing, but like all those rumors, like Dale Jr. and everybody talking about during the Rolex 24, let's bring stock car racing to the Rolex. I think it can come back for sure, man.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be the future.
Especially with the next gen car, I've heard rumors of next gen car at Rolex or something along those lines. I've heard that rumor being floated around.
Can you imagine a brake change on that thing?
Yeah, not great. So
that would be longer than 10 minutes.
Definitely. But hey, let's just put a mandatory pit stop in, make everybody do a 10-minute pit stop, and you're good to go. That's what they're doing with LMP3. So yes, the Mazda RX-8, Arian, good call with Patrick Dempsey drove. Yes.
That was man, the RX-8 that just that car kept like making me pull my hair out every
Sylvain Tremblay, the Canadian driver, used to win all the time with his Castrol sponsored Mazda RX-8.
Yeah, for more no, it wasn't More Speed. What was it?
No. Speed Source.
Yes. What a great team. Oh man, they were so dominant back then in Grand Am.
And we are getting on 2 hours here.
Yeah, everyone. We've been chatting it up.
Let's chat a little bit about what's coming up with our YouTube channel and podcast. So we are going to get back to regular podcasts probably next week. Trying to get a guest lined up. We're excited about who it is. So we're just going to schedule that. And then we're going to do some video content. January is all about sports cars. It's sports car month. It is the Rolex 24, which is one of James and I. It's one of our favorite races in the world. So we're going to cover some sports car stuff this month. We've got some videos coming out that I'll be editing all weekend, grinding out because work's also starting to get busy with the racing season coming up. So I want to get those done and get those scheduled so you guys can have some awesome video content. We kind of slacked. We put that Le Mans video out in September and then we didn't really do anything for like 3 months. But you know what? Life gets in the way. We got busy and this is something we do for fun. So But yeah, we're going to try and do a video maybe every 2 or 3 weeks going forward. So.
Yeah, and we'll definitely have more content kind of like just stapled out, lined up. But yeah, for the month of January so far, we're just thinking sports cars. I think that's perfect for us. Kind of going back to the chat here, I think this is a really good comment right here. I thought GT3 racing is starting to get very expensive. Maybe GT4 will be dominant GT class in the future. I have to strongly agree. For the budget of a GT4 program, it is very enticing to compete in GT4. The problem is there's always another step to the ladder. There's a higher rung and people want to achieve it. And with customer racing, it's all about getting people higher up on that ladder. So, one good representation I work with right now is Audi. Audi is all about customer racing. They don't want to have a factory effort anymore. They want to have people just buy the car, run the team. They'll provide support. And that's basically every manufacturer nowadays is basically getting to that point. So when you have it at that point, if you've been to an IMSA race weekend and you've seen the Audi trailer for GT4 versus the Audi trailer for WeatherTech, it's a very different Audi.
Yeah, definitely. And GT3 is very expensive. I just worked with the GT3 team the last 2 years, and like I can tell you that it is much more expensive than advertised in the long run. It is getting to be several over the $2, $3, $4 million to run a team for a year. And that's a lot of money in a Pro-Am class. So
there's no money, no like factory. Well, there is a bit of factory.
You're very limited on what factory help you're allowed to have during a weekend. So.
Oh yeah, no. And also like, just year-end compensation, like the amount of money you can get from your manufacturer if you're successful or for winning races is mainly just enough to cover parts expenses for each race as you set up, tear down, and just go through the car if need be. I will say though, the GT4 car is pretty durable. I think that's where cost effective in the long run, it will be a better form of racing. But then again, they do not go through the same lengths of races as the GT3 cars go through. GT3 normally goes through like a 4 to 6 hour race.
Yeah, we've seen some GT4s in longer races. 8 hours.
They've done it. Yeah.
24 hours to Dubai, like Creventic races. They do GT4 for 24 hours.
GT4. There's a GT4 class too in the 24 hours of Nürburgring as well, and in the 24 hours of Austin. So it's not to say that they don't have the longevity to do it. But when you run more of those races, that's more money you have to look to spend on setting up the car and going through the car and everything. And, running those races is longer. You have to run more fuel in the car. You have to run more sets of tires on the car. So I get I get where IMSA's got a good platform with endurance racing, but man, I just don't know why SRO isn't popping as much with sprint racing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I enjoy SRO. They're fun weekends. Feels like club racing, but
it kind of does. But I mean, I think the big thing to that point.
Very expensive.
very expensive.
I enjoy it, but it's
limited manufacturer support. Like look at like SCCA back in the 80s. All the manufacturers like throwing their hands at something.
Well, the issue with SRO now is that it's very much become a series where everyone gets a trophy. And as much as that is kind of appealing, it's also not appealing because it's like, yeah, I won my class. Well, how many cars were in your class? 2, and the other guy broke down. It's like,
well, and tough, unfortunately, that's where I feel like the first like GTE or GTD season with the AM class will be. I don't feel like there's going to be enough cars in the AM class to have like, oh, there was a competitive, 5-car battle for the podium. But no, it's going to be like
definitely
three of you showed up. Here you go. Congratulations.
Aaron, yes, good point. You said you enjoy the racing that used to be the Continental Tire Series. That is the Michelin Pilot Challenge.
Pilot Challenge, my series, baby. I love Pilot Challenge. That's like the best racing. A good mix of a sprint format, but it's long enough to kind of have some endurance strategy to it. And also the differences between the GT4 cars and what they have to go through with their pit protocol versus the TCR. I think it really adds some interesting flair to the field. And we talk about AMs. Some of those AMs and GT4 cars are barely fast enough to run with the fastest TCR cars. That's telling you how much those TCR drivers are booking it around these tracks. It's really cool to see.
Yes, and the TCR has very much become like the Hyundai one make cup.
Yeah, it's,
you know, like it's,
well,
yeah.
Hyundai's got the newest car out there right now, which is the biggest thing. You know, when you got the newest car, you got one of the better cars as far as like generation wise. The Audi, that thing's an old thing. It's been out there for so long. It's just a brick. The Honda, I think that's a pretty cool TCR car. If they can just figure out grip, because it seems like they have a problem with the Michelin tires at times, but I love TCR. I wish they would do like more double headers on the weekends with the TCR cars and just, I don't know. It's such a cool category, but yeah, SRO definitely has the most exotic races for TCR, but IMSA has the best races for TCR in my opinion.
100%. Yeah. And now even Hyundai's got a new car. They have the Elantra TCR. So they're going to have a couple of those and a couple of the Velosters.
And those are all built by Brian Herta too.
All built by Brian Herta Autosport. They sell customer cars. So you too
and that's
could own
that whole
TCR
point.
if you have 300 grand. So
I think it's a little less than 300. Well, I mean, I think the one you're speaking of, that the newer Veloster, it could be close to that.
That's a guess.
You might get a spare engine too, which is not bad because those are, I know from Audi, they're sealed. Like if you blow an engine, you're done. Like you can't rebuild that. Like you got to send it off and buy a new one. And but that's a part of customer racing too. You know, you kind of understand the terms of agreement whenever you sign off with a manufacturer, no matter if it's Hyundai, Audi, Lexus, you know, you're playing by their terms.
So if you haven't figured out, we started off talking about Australian NASCAR, and now we're talking about sports cars. So we love all forms of racing at Flashback to the Track, and we do content.
Arian, man, Arian's just coming through in the chat with clutch ones. Yes, I do agree. Race distance is perfect. Weather tech races definitely at Long Beach and the Charlotte Roval are going to be probably better because of the sprint format. And I like the sprint format. I think that's what makes Detroit much better than it probably is.
Yeah. So unless you're shooting it, man, you get 100 minutes. You're like, God. But no, it's good.
Track is beats a day out of the track. You know,
in GT cars, it's one pit stop. So you're getting your one pit stop in with your drive time, you're switching drivers, and then you're going. And it's solid because you're going to see at Long Beach beating and banging, and close racing is a very short event. Like I like endurance racing though. I like longer races. And I feel like to be a true enduro, it has to be at least 6 hours. I hate when it's like, oh yes, the WEC 4 hours of Silverstone. I'm like, we're really going to fly all our cars there and do a 4-hour race and call it an enduro? Like, come on. Like, no, yeah, it's got to be at least 6.
Need
like
3 more stints, okay? 1 double and 1 single stint.
Like, I love 24-hour races. Absolutely love them. They're amazing. They're unbelievable. They feel like you're going to die there. They're going to go on forever, especially if you go for the whole week. You're like, Jesus, it's never going to end. But they're a lot of fun. I really dig it. Like, I think Le Mans this year, I think I watched a good 18 hours of it. And at one point I was watching the Signatech Alpine in-car live stream from the LMP2 car. And I think I watched it for about 2.5 hours. I was just mesmerized at just this LMP2 car with the in-car, like a GoPro live stream, just barreling down the Mulsanne. So I love 24-hour races.
Yeah, but I think kind of to piggyback on another point that he just made, I think maybe when we watched that, like that Trans Am race too, like that was a sprint race that was probably like 100-minute race as well. And it's just so good. And I remember even covering the encore for what I did cover. It was pretty interesting to see that kind of format of a race. It was just like the perfect distance, not too long, not too short. Cause like for like what we do, we would like to see as much track time as possible because, you know, we are humans and, you know, we do a good job of what we do, but sometimes, you know, you don't get it all at one shot. So it's nice when the car comes back by several times and you can go to several different places. But when you only have 100 minutes to work, it does make it a little more stressful, but I think that's a good amount of time.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, you know, you're like, but the 2-hour and 40-minute format is not terrible for IMSA, for the WeatherTech.
I think it'd be better for street courses and things if you're going to bring it to different venues to have the sprint format or to have a multi-race weekend kind of atmosphere. Because I think that's the biggest thing. Like Mark and I always bring this up. You got to bring more to the track. You know, it's got to.
Yes, you do.
And BK has said it too, man. You got to have, and he's spoken about the fan way. You got to have some experience. You got to make it worthwhile. And we were talk about it, like, you know, about what's happening with the current schedule for motorsports. If you look at it at the beginning of the year, you got the Roar. Then the next week, you got the Rolex 24. A couple weeks later, then you got speed weeks at Daytona, and you got the Clash, you got the 500. Well, and then after that, you got more and more and more. It's like, as a fan, where do you invest your money?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
You've got option paralysis when it comes to motor racing in the United States. I think Robbie Gordon actually said that best on the Dale Jr. download when he said the market is so oversaturated in the United States that you become overwhelmed with what are you going to watch this weekend? There's so much racing to watch. You know, like he's like, look at Australia. They got V8 supercars. That's their top thing. Everyone watches it. They do 36 or 38 races, but it's 2 per weekend.
Yeah, they have a lot of back-to-back weekends.
And they give you the double header and you can go and watch a whole event, you know, and like, that's what I think NASCAR needs to do. You got to cut the weekends down, cut down to like 22 weekends and do more double headers, because double headers just offer people so much more.
Yeah. It's about, you know, instead of going back to a place twice, try to just go there for a double header weekend
100%.
And expand your market, you know, go to more places once. I think that's a bigger thing. No offense to Michigan, but why the heck do you go to Michigan twice in the summer?
Yeah, agreed. Same thing with Pocono. Pocono had it right when they're like, we're going to do double header. It's like, all right, let's do that. That makes sense, you know? So I agree with that 100%.
Yeah,
Let's do more double headers.
I wouldn't not mind going back to Daytona a second time. You know, as a car owner, I think I'd love that, because that's one less super speedway car you got to build, one less super speedway car you got to write off, you know? That's another thing too, is like these teams were I'm pretty sure this year was very, interesting to see how the mechanics of it worked as far as like on the logistics side for the team, but it must have been very efficient for them to pack up and load up for these doubleheader weekends, unless something serious happened, you know, where they had to pull out that backup car.
Mm-hmm.
So I think logistically it should definitely be the future, but I'm not the one making the calls. I'm not Ben Kennedy and, you know, Steve Phelps and everybody over there.
I'm with you, man. But I think we got to leave it at that. I think we've been on for quite a while. Let us know what you thought of the live stream. It's the first time we've ever done it, so bear with us. We might do more podcasts like this in the future. We might do some more live type stuff. It's fun to just chat, you know, not work from a script or anything. So it's good.
Yeah, it was a fun free chat. I mean, we just chilled here, you know, watched the race, shouted at it because exciting things happened. Some pretty exciting things happened. I liked that race. We'll definitely probably have to do this again sometime. We might, you know, make this our video option, you know, because I think we got a good audio format, but this could be our video thing. Yeah. But anyways, we'll have some more content for the people in the future. We wish you all a very happy, safe New Year's, because you still got a couple of hours left, unless you're in Australia. It's already New Year's.
Yeah. Or you're in Europe. It's already New Year's there. So
yeah, everybody's ahead of America.
It's actually, I think it's New Year's in Newfoundland right now. So even in my country. So yeah. Happy New Year's, everybody. And we'll see you guys. We'll have a podcast for you next week. So take care, everyone.
Thanks. Also, shout out to our sponsor, Blue Emu, for supporting us this year. You know, they've been amazing. We didn't really mention them much in this live stream, and that's just because, you know, we really didn't work out anything to have them promote it, but they've been such a great supporter of our podcast. Without them, we wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the things we have done this year and get the exposure that we have. So we're very grateful to them. We look forward to more with Blue Emu in the coming year.
Take care.
Dialing us out. Now we're gonna leave the stream. End.